welcome you. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody stand, please. Okay, we met in closed session today, and Vice President Nell will give the report. Just to say, Debbie Butler, President Debbie Butler, will not be here tonight, so I'll be Vice President, and Derek Nell would be. I'll be President, and Derek Nell would be Vice President for tonight.
All right, so to report out for the record, closed session item 3B, with respect to the item discussed pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators and the Novato Federation of Teachers. We took the report and gave direction to staff. Item 3C, with respect to the item discussed pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, labor negotiators and the California School Employees Association discussed and gave direction to staff. And item 3D, with respect to this item, there was no report available, so there is nothing to report out. And that concludes our closed session announcements.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to public comment on closed session agenda. And no. You may come to the front and get a blue card. And just so you know, the blue cards are both in Spanish and English. And anyone may come up, and it's when you have, when the public gets 3 minutes to, this is a reminder, public gets 3 minutes to address the board, and we get to listen. And unfortunately, part of the way it works is we don't reply back, but you're always welcome to email us or get a hold of us through the school district. Approval of the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the order of business for this evening, item number 7.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, so that'll be, that's one first by
Ross and Tom.
Trustee Miller and then Trustee Cooper. And everybody else? We take a vote? Okay, so that'll be Debbie's absence, so we have 6-0. Okay, and next item, we go to call to order, Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so then we have, let's see what else. This is my first time, so.
Item number 8, public comment.
Public comment on
Any
consent.
public comment and consent items? None, there's none, okay. So we move forward, and we may do student presentation
We get number 9.
at this point. Approval of consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything out? No? Okay. So I call.
Madam President,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to pull item I, 16.
Okay. Trustee Cooper pulls 16I. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 16I. Approve all other items.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Derek. Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll just move forward. We'll call for a vote on that one. So that would be 6-0. Thank you very much. Okay, now we can do the. Tom, do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to?
Yeah, that would be
Let's-
fine.
let's
Thank
do
you very
that.
much for the opportunity. I just wanted to, I think it's fitting and for this board to accept this gift, very generous gift from the Peter Haas Junior Family Fund. They continue to support this district in many, many, many ways, and just our gratitude and thank them. And with that, I would move on 16I.
Okay, great, thank you. Wonderful. So we have, we got 6-0. Okay, wonderful. Should we do a vote? Okay, let's count. 1, 5, 6. Okay, 6-0. Okay, so now presentation. I just wanted to get to the presentation. So Olive Elementary School will be presenting to us tonight.
Is Olive here?
Are they here?
They're coming down the hallway.
Okay.
Are they?
Obviously, you've not been in a classroom with kindergarten students. Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Sesmolinick, the principal of Olive School. And you probably have already heard the commotion down the hall. So imagine a classroom full of energetic kindergarten students, all ready to learn. Imagine 4 amazing kindergarten teachers containing that energy, educating them, providing great, inspiring activities for them to learn with, art, science, music, PE, social emotional support, and then guiding them through all the standards. But the best part is to walk into a classroom and hear them singing. Ms. Donovan is one of the kindergarten teachers here tonight, and on the side of Ms. Donovan, the very large pregnant person is Ms. Donovan's co-teacher, Miss Emily Steffi, and we also unfortunately do not have our 2 other teachers, Miss Tiffany Boulad and Miss Jody Castro, here tonight. They are going to take it away.
You can come to the whatever's best for you.
So one of our many tasks that we have to accomplish as TK and kindergarten students is learning sight words. Words that we often see in our text, and color words are included in those sight words. And we know that these little guys learn really well when things are connected to music. So we have learned songs that help us learn how to spell and write the color words. So we're going to share about 5 or 6 of those with you tonight.
I love colors. Let's sing about some. What's your favorite?
Red. I like red. Me too.
Okay, let's sing about red.
R-E-D, red. R-E-D, red. I can spell red. I can spell red. Flying trucks are red. Stop signs are red too. R-E-D. R-E-D. Yeah, that was fun. Let's do it again. R-E-D, red. R-E-D, red. I can spell red. I can spell red. Fire trucks are red. Stop signs are red too. R-E-D. R-E-D.
I'm thinking of a color that's bright and makes me happy.
Is it purple? Is it green? Is it blue?
No, it's yellow.
Y-E-L-L-O-W spells yellow. Y-E-L-L-O-W spells yellow. Like the early morning sun, when the day has just begun. Y-E-L-L-O-W spells yellow. Daffodils and baby ducks are yellow. Lemonade, scrambled eggs are yellow. I like the smiley
That was wonderful.
I like blue. May we think about the color blue?
Sure.
Yellowish the blue, yellowish the blue. Hi ho, did you know? Yellowish the blue. The big sky is blue, the ocean is too. Hi ho, did you know? Yellowish the blue. The yellowish the blue, the yellowish the blue. Hi ho, did you know? Yellowish the blue. The big sky is blue, the ocean is too. Hi ho, did you know? Yellowish the blue.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
We can stay and disrupt the entire evening.
Okay, go home. Okay, thank you. So our next is a presentation for San Marin Pony Express. And
Let me give him just a second.
okay,
Give him a second.
and next
There's
is
our audience too, so. So I'm really excited tonight to present the recognition for the San Marin Pony Express team under the leadership of our fabulous teacher, Scott McLeod. So they have received the National Scholastic Press Association All-American with 4 Marks of Distinction Award. The NSPA website explains that the All-American rating is the highest rating given to any publication. And we want to honor Scott and his amazing staff. I have been so impressed with your guys' newspaper ever since I came here. The quality of stories, a lot of times when I look at student newspapers, frankly, it's just kind of a lot of gossipy stuff and things. And if you look, this is the latest one. Student explores careers in medicine. Student wins bronze at international competition. We must fight climate change. Half of the articles in here, I don't think our principals or teachers never even know about. NUSD restructures restorative justice. Drama teacher Linda Kisslingbury to retire after 19 years. Students and parents express need for crossing guards. Measure G project priorities change. Administration hopes to clarify vaping policies. Students and staff reflect on shooting preparedness. San Marin reaches its 50th anniversary, and I could go on, but the quality of the stories and the thoughtfulness in the writing and the quality of writing in terms of the grammar, that's another thing. Usually if you look at student newspapers, you just find all kinds of grammatical errors. You guys should be really proud of the quality of your writing, and I think what you do to edify not only the students, but the staff and the parents as well. I always look forward to reading these, and I get a lot of things to read, so I've just been really, really impressed with all that you guys have done ever since I've been here, and I know the board and everybody else is too. So we have some certificates for you guys. So Scott, you want to come on up and introduce your students and tell us a little bit about your class, and congratulations. Fantastic.
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you very much. It's always great to be honored, but it's really about these kids over here. One of the keys to success that I found in all the organizations I worked in the past, in the private and the nonprofit sector, was finding talent, helping them shape objectives, setting high standards and high expectations, and then giving them freedom and autonomy and hold them accountable. And that's kind of what I do. That's my role in this. Thankfully, my greatest joy in teaching is exactly in line with that. My joy is to watch these kids grow and lead and find their voice. And that's what gets me charged up every day. And as I look at the wall there, that's what gets me charged up, engaged, inspiring, and empowering. Every day when class starts, as the kids know, I say a few words. I actually huddle with the editors-in-chief and I say a few words. I huddle with the editors-in-chief. We kind of plan the day, agenda, what has to be covered. I say a few words and then I sit down and they come up and talk. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to introduce Aditya Katewa and Liz King, who are our current editors-in-chief. We've got some folks from, come on up. And we've got some of the kids from this year's class. We also have some students who came back from college just to be here tonight, which is really terrific. Elise Chasman and Anya Damazan, would you guys stand up, please, just for a second? Because one of the things that's really wonderful about journalism is kind of like a family. You can't get rid of them. They just keep coming back. So, Aditya and Liz.
Okay. Hi, my name is Aditya. You guys probably know that already. But one of the biggest parts about this class, and what the biggest reason why I'm so happy to have taken it, is that in this class, we learn skills that we would never have even talked about in other classes. We learn time management, the importance of delegating workload to other students, the importance of deadlines, which is something that's extremely useful later in life that we don't get from our English or history or science classes. That is reinforced in us every single day in journalism. And I think that is the class that I'm happy to say I feel has prepared me most for my life, both in and out of the classroom. Every day I see these guys so eager and happy to work and get going. Like, we have a good number of our editors. We have editors from News, Emma Robertson sitting right there. We have our features editors, Vivian Bui and Elise Jonas-Stelson. We have arts and culture editor, Vivian Tran. We have our sports editor, Priscilla Flores, and we have both of our center spread editors, Zoe Null and Emma Williams, here. And that's the happiest part of my day, seeing these guys come here. Not to mention Zach Griggy standing there, who loves to look at everyone's articles. They're so eager and happy to get to work every day, and like being able to lead these guys, see them, and talk to them every day. It's one of my highlights of this year and my high school career.
So I'm Liz. I agree with everything Aditya just said. You guys are all amazing, and you make our jobs a lot easier than it would be with a less talented group of people. For me, this class is, like, most importantly, it's taught me to how to talk to people, because I am kind of a more quiet person, and talking to people is not my strong suit. So getting out there and talking to people that I may not have ever talked to before, this class has allowed me to do that, and taught me a lot of new things about myself and the school and the district. But one thing that we'd like to emphasize is that we are a completely student funded class on campus, and as you can see, like, the paper is a really big deal. We send out to more than 1,000 people all throughout the country, all throughout California, to different schools, to different high schools. And we have computers. We have to pay for our program that we use. We have to pay to print the paper and everything. And so Priscilla is also our circulation manager, so she deals with all subscriptions and things. So we're going to hand out some newspapers for you guys, and also subscription forms, and we would really appreciate it if you did subscribe. It's $30 for all of the papers throughout the year, and we send out about like six to seven papers throughout the year. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And you also communicate not just verbally as you're interviewing, but you're also communicating to the rest of whoever reads the newspaper. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item 12A, and that's the announcements, where the board and the superintendent get to ask questions, make comments. Yes? Absolutely.
So I started carrying a newspaper. I had 65 subscribers on my route, and it was, snowy, uphill both directions. It was awful, but the press is produced on linotype machines and hot metal, and it got distributed just to the people locally. You guys have an opportunity to affect the entire world with the way the internet has come, the skills that you're going to develop here, project-based learning, working as teams. There's a whole industry in Silicon Valley and San Francisco that are looking for people who have exactly the kind of skills that you have. The ability to communicate, the ability to do it quickly on a deadline, the ability to work as teams. This is an extraordinary opportunity, and you're just, so far, well, 2 of you are not at high school, you've already gotten out the door, but the rest of you are at the beginning of a huge opportunity to take and find your own strengths, and I'm thrilled to have you guys in the room. This is like the great things that happen in Novato's story, so.
Thank you, Trustee Millerick. Does Leslie want to take a picture with the board? Please come, and students come and
You bet.
get a picture taken.
Troublemakers. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Keep up the good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And you guys can get out of here if you want, unless you really want to sit around for another 3 hours.
Okay, so now we have item 12A, and it's announcements board.
That's
This
right.
is where the board and the superintendent get to make announcements, or if they have any questions or comments. And we're going to start with the very right, with our student board members.
So announcements for Samarin High. So we just got back from our break, so everything's been pretty calm.
Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Jimena Lara from Samarin High School.
Thank you.
And so we have our Green and Gold event coming up. Our Winter Whiteout dance is on January 25th. And we have a basketball game tonight against Redwood, and Novato and Samarin soccer game tomorrow. And I have,
In the rain?
yeah, rain or shine.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And
Well,
then I have a few announcements in, well, it's the same thing, but in Spanish. Apenas regresamos de nuestras vacaciones de invierno. El evento de Verde y Oro se acerca y tenemos un baile el 25 de enero. Thank you.
No
Okay.
comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else?
I have a comment. Just a reminder that our superintendent trustee dinner is on April, you know what? I didn't get the date on here, actually.
Okay, we can find out.
But I want to make sure you guys got it on your calendar. If you bear with me, or Derek, you want to go first? Do you have any?
Looking to see if I have it. It just came out.
It's actually March, I think. It's March 27th at 5:30 to 7:30. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure you guys all put it on your calendar.
March 20,
Yes.
okay?
Superintendent trustees from countywide get together.
It's a wing thing.
Okay, trustee Mack? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to announce or remind everybody that the Joint Legislative Action Committee of Marin County Trustees and Superintendents is going to be going to Sacramento on Wednesday, the 23rd. We're headed up there on a bus for those of you who would like to attend. And this is we go every year, and then we set up a schedule, a daily schedule of presentations, and discuss the coming legislative items. And I just thought I'd just run down quickly for you the agenda items we'll be discussing are pensions, liabilities, and school funding. We're going to have sessions on special education, as well as early childhood education, charter schools, and transparency. And finally, emphasis on some school construction and modernization funds being released at a higher rate. So that's our agenda and our priorities that we'll be working on. And then please, if you're not already signed up to go, please join us.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you very much. So I also, I attended the Golden Bell Committee along with Tom, and we're moving forward with that event. We're always looking forward to that. You can start nominating and send everything in a link, and it's just very user friendly. So the other thing is, most of us attended Shelley Scott's swearing in, so that was fun, and I think everybody in the county got sworn in, district attorneys, whatever, everybody else is sworn in, so that was exciting. We wish her best of luck. And I attended the Heart of Marin event every year. I was the interpreter, and I'm very proud to say that we had a couple of names that came from Novato, and Lucy London was one of the awards. She won one of the awards, and Cheryl Padlock for the what used to be the former Novato Youth Center, which is now the North Marin Community Services. So anyway, so congratulations to both of them. Make us very proud that they came from Novato, and I think that's it on my part.
So three quick things that are going on right now. One, the Youth Truth Survey is going on. So all staff, all students, and hopefully most parents are taking that. The window's open, I believe, till the end of the month. So 25th. Thank you, Ms. Benjamin, for all your work on that. That provides us with great information from a variety of perspectives, about how we're doing, and we have the baseline data from last year. So it gives us a ton of information and a lot of different perspectives, and we're going to be asking our parents and our students also to help us. So we'll have the parents kind of look at the survey data, do their comparisons, and give the principals and staff feedback. We'll have the principals work with the staff, and then we're also getting our student groups working with the Youth Leadership Institute to work with small groups so the students can kind of make sense of those surveys. So I think that's a great way to empower those groups to really take ownership of what's working, what's not, and give them a venue to present that to our principals and to our district. So we're really excited about that. We're about ready to embark on the LCAP. So on the January 28th is our first meeting. The LCAP is really our strategic plan for the district and really focuses on how we're meeting the needs of our trying to close the achievement gap. We are getting assistance from the Marin County Office of Education, differentiated assistance this year because we're in trouble in a couple areas. We're in the red on the dashboard, which are suspensions and chronic absenteeism for our African American youth and our foster youth. So those are a couple specific areas that we're working on, and they'll be helping us kind of take a plan to make sure we're looking at that. And then finally, JROTC at Novato High School had their visit from the Air Force last Friday, and they passed flying colors, so that's good. Their enrollment is down. They're supposed to have a minimum of 80 students, and I believe there's 67. But they have really good plans to get that up, and one of the things is outreach to the middle schools, and that's going much better than it was. And so Sarge was really excited about the kind of the initial visit that they did at San Jose. They'll be going to Sinaloa soon, and that really opens the door for kids to learn about JROTC where they otherwise wouldn't know. And it's probably one of the best leadership programs we have in the district, and also provides scholarships to those students as well, which our own Miss Benjamin's daughter received a scholarship to UCLA. So it's really impressive, and it's a great program, and glad to see it's back on the right track. We have a new colonel there, seems to be doing a great job. So really excited about our JROTC at Novato High School. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next item, non-agenda public comment. This is item A, 13A, and this is where individuals may address the board in accordance with a public comment statement on the last page of the agenda. So, and there's, okay, no. We move forward. Okay, staff reports. And this is the English language learner update given to us by Leslie Smith, our equity coordinator. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Leslie Smith. I am the district coordinator of equity. This is a new position. And one of my big things that I do is Title III and English learners. So I'm going to be doing an update on our English learners today. And this is like, I've talked with, I don't know how many people, and they changed up to the minute. So even just now, they were asking me, teachers were asking me in my group, I want you to change that in there. So, okay, so that's what we're doing. So that's why you're getting it right now. They actually, I'm the equity coordinator, but they said, you need your Novato equity imperative on one of the slides. So that's slide 2. So they asked me to put this in as well because we are looking at our students as a whole. So our equity in Novato Unified School District means ensuring every student has access to educational opportunities that challenge, inspire, and prepare him or her for a strong future. So this is what they want to add to it as we look at our English learners. So when we look, what is the definition of an English learner is ELs are students who speak a language other than English and are working on communicating fluently or learning effectively in English. They're typically required specialized or modified instruction in both English language and in their academic courses. So right now, this data comes from Data Matters, which is amazing. We can get up-to-date reports at all the time. So just even putting this report together, the amount of students we have is 7,600. Wow, that's small. About 7,600. I can't see it. My glasses aren't thick enough. Is it? Thank you very much. And then out of those, our English learners, we have about 15.5% or 1,188 ELs. So what the data matters is you can break it down even farther than that. You can see childs that are SED or socially economic disadvantage. Thank you. Thank you, team, for being here with me as well. This is a late night for me. I'm an early bed person. But it also comes down to, are white students. They're not all Hispanic, but we have 31 home languages that are spoken. So there's quite a diversity. So the question is, how do you become an EL? So there's right when they come in, right when a student comes into the Novato School District or a California school district, they fill out a home language survey. During that home language survey, if it's the first time that they've been in a California public school, not a private school, or if it's out of country, if they say yes to that, if they say yes to a parent, the guardian reports that there's another language other than English is spoken. So if it's yes to both of those, then we test them as an EL. We're going to find out how much they know as an English learner. So right now, this is new to our district this year and the state. We do LPAC testing. And we, if it's yes to those on that home language surveys, then we give them the initial LPAC, and I'll go into that in a minute. It's given to the students, and those students either come back as an EL or they are considered an IFEP. There are so many acronyms in this, so I'm trying to put them out, spread it out. So IFEP is where they're initially fluent and they don't have to have ELD services, so it's one or the other. So LPAC is what replaced CELT. It's in many ways it's the same, but there's a lot of things that are different about it. So again, the initial LPAC, it identifies students in reading, writing, and listening and speaking, and that's the same with CELT. It has to be given, this needs to be given 30 days of enrollment. So if a student comes in right now, our 30 days starts. We have to give them the test. We score that initial test in the district or at the school. We've all been calibrated, so we know how to score it, and a letter goes out to those parents, so all within that 30 days. And the students are only given, for one, the home language survey is only given once in their lifetime as well in California. And the LPAC, initial LPAC is the only time they're given once in their lifetime. So the summative LPAC is given in the springtime, and our window this year is from February to May. And this will monitor the progress for our learning English until they reclassify as English or IFEP. So, or not IFEP, RFEP, sorry, RFEP. We'll talk about that. Okay, so it helps determine where students need, what they need in English until they reclassify. This is what the parents would receive from the summative LPAC. It looks like this. It has the like the dashboard, same kind of thing as you would see on the California dashboard of our schools, and it'll tell them what levels they are at. And it has on the back, it explains each level and what they will be getting services in. So if I'm an EL, what services do I get? Designated ELD time and integrated, and those work in tandem. So at each school site, we made a decision, and you guys followed it, of 45 minutes protected time where teachers use the California ELD, English Language Development Standards, as the focal point, and they use their Common Core standards as, how would I say, like, it's not a supplement. It's like, if what I'm going to do, I'm going to teach them about sentence structure, but I'm going to use what I'm teaching in social studies to a sentence from social studies, something like that. And then that's 45 minutes per day that those students, those ELs, are getting that instruction from their teacher. Integrated ELD is the rest of the day where all teachers are scaffolding and using their Common Core standards with ELD standards in the back of their mind. So they're keeping that in as they're teaching. So what does it look like in elementary? What does it look like in middle school and high school? So that 45 minutes of designated time, that time where they're just teaching their ELs, they're using Clark Consulting and Training and those principles, and I'll go over those, what they are. And they also, this is something they wanted to add, the ELECT group. They use the ELECT toolkit as well that we created. This is in the classroom. Every day, 45 minutes. It's taught by a certificated teacher. It needs to be. In past years when, we didn't know any better, I had my aide out there teaching, taking the small groups of EL. It is the other way around. You need the certified teacher teaching those kids English. And we're using the ELD standards. That integrated time, they're using those GLAD strategies, all those supports that you need to make sure they get that content. And this is in all grades. Middle school's slightly different because they have a designated class that they go to, and it's around 45 minutes, 50 minutes each day. And in a couple of the middle schools, they have it, depending on their proficiency level, they'll have 2 classes of ELD time. It is an independent class. It's again taught by a certified teacher, and they're using their Clark Consulting strategies and principles. Again, during their other classrooms, and they're in contact. Those teachers are in contact and talking to those core classes. What are you learning right now? What can I support you with? Okay, we're learning about fractions, and they don't know anything, so I'm going to bring that in and be working with kids. So using what those core teachers are teaching as well. And in high school, they are using Clark Consulting, but they are using some supplementary. They felt that some reading comprehension was needed, so they're bringing in some other support, but they're still using Clark Consulting as well. Again, I wanted to mention that the ELD 3 and 4 are A to G approved, so which is goes towards their A to G, so that's perfect. So to Clark Consulting and Training. And I'm not sure how much you know about Clark Consulting, but I thought I'd go over it just slightly. It's based on principles, and the 6 principles that they have taught us, and a lot of our teachers, we drank the Kool-Aid because this stuff works, and it's based on gaining language acquisitions. The first one, grouping students by language levels. So even within my classroom, I'm going to have different levels of English learners. I'm going to group them by groups. So when we have independent, talk to your neighbor about that. I'm going to go up as a teacher and I'm going to be talking to each of the groups and pushing them what they need. So these guys over here are a little more proficient. I'm going to push them what they need. So even within your classroom, you are grouping students by their ability so that you can push them where they are. You want that +1. Stating language objectives. What are you going to learn today? This is like common sense to me. Okay, when you leave today, we're going to know how to structure a sentence. So they understand, okay, did we do that today? Did we meet those objectives? 3, they talking in complete sentences. And I could say, and I taught this this last summer. I was teaching this to kids, and they were always catching me, Mrs. Smith, you're not talking in full sentences. So they would catch me as well. So making sure, and we do instead of saying, would you complete that in a complete sentence, we just would use a signal. So the more they're using the whole language, yes, some of the times we can answer in yes and no, but if you answer no because of this, this, and this, they're going to get language acquisition faster. The more they speak the in full sentences, and their writing goes along with that. 50-50 rule is that the teacher's not talking the whole time. The only way to learn language is if they're talking. So having them talking more, thinking about the rule of 50-50. Push at their linguistic uncomfortable zone, just pushing them a little bit farther. When they start making mistakes, you know that that's exactly where you need to be taking them to the next step. And last thing is error correction, which is somewhat been a teacher go, I don't want to embarrass them. But if you have them in a classroom and they're saying something wrong, saying it, incorrectly, a pronunciation of a word, you correct them at the time. Well, we would say it like this. We would say engage like this. Can you try that again? You want to correct them at the time because then you don't want that embedded. If a math teacher, same principle, math teacher, I think 4 + 4 is 9, they're going to correct you on that. So correcting in the moment and building that culture in your classroom that it's okay to make mistakes. This is the comfort zone. We're learning this together. And to me, these principles and the methods that they are using, this is just a few of the ones that our teachers have learned. There's many more. They all align with the ELD standards. But if I felt, I'm not a language person myself. I don't know a second language. But if I had these strategies in these principles, I know that it would make it much easier to take on. So myself and these kids have told us that, so those are the things the basis of Clark Consulting and Training. So what's working, and this was one of those slides with my teachers that they said, okay, let's make sure we put all that they wanted on there. So the things that they like about Clark Consulting and Training are those principles. They really do work. And when you see it in action, man, it's magic. They love the methods that they've been taught, these strategies that they've been taught. Some of them, not all of them, like the coaching. And because there's planning, there's different kinds of coaching you can have. You can have planning together. You can have the coach do a demo while you watch, or they could be teaching together with you, which I like, because if I don't know a strategy, I say, could you tell the next step? We call it pass the pen. They take it, and the next, that coach helps you through it. It makes me a better teacher. That's how I felt. So I kind of enjoyed the coaching myself, but, and they are open Clark Consulting is open to any time that there's a need at the school. They make it happen. We just had at San Jose Middle School, they were needing just their ELD teachers and other teachers. They have a reading comprehension deficit. I mean, they're going, we need help in this area. Clark Consultant came in, a coach was with them all week. They did some training, model classes, and taught them, and man, they just were thrilled. All the teachers, they drank the Kool-Aid. So, in small pockets, you see some celebrations. There are in somewhat more in our middle school, we're seeing reclassification. So those are the positive things. The things that don't work so well for teacher is that coaching, that in the moment that coach with you there, it can be distracting. So it is uncomfortable for them. So the coaching is, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Consistency of the CCT usage, so making sure that you're doing it consistently, that leadership buy-in, so that that's what we're working on is let's see what it looks like in Fidelity. So we're going to get a group together of admin and go check it out and see before we make any adjustments. The sustainability of the program. So last year, the ELD instructional coaches were going to take over, and Clark Consultant was going to kind of go away. Well, we got rid of the ELD instructional coaches. So how does that look looking forward? How do we make it sustainable in our, so we'll be looking at that. And there's a lot of prep. That was one of the things they wanted to put on there, and the reading component. That was something that it kind of lacks in the teacher's eyes. So our goal for our ELs is to get reclassified. And the state mandates 4 criteria to reclassify. The first thing is on that LPAC summative, you have to get a 4. That is, you're well developed. And then it goes to the next step. It's a comparative test that all the students take, all students, not just ELs, but all students. So we have a MAP test that we go by, or our writing assessment. So something that is done, everyone does it. So that's the second component. If you pass that or meet the standards and then it's in a teacher evaluation. They're just looking at language acquisition, parent conference, bam. So we got 4 things, we sign that off, and they're reclassified out of the English language development program. Our district goal is to have our ELs reclassified within 5 years. And last year we had 184 students reclassify, which is about 14% of those ELs. And every spring we have a huge celebration, a reclassification celebration. So we make it is a big deal. It is hard to reclassify, and so we push and celebrate it. So after reclassification, we are required to monitor these. It's a moral thing. We just drop them out and that's it, they're gone. No, but we watch out for them and we monitor them for about 4 years. It was 2 years, it has been up this year to 4 years after redesignation, to ensure that support that they're getting and making sure that they're meeting their needs in the other classes, their core classes. And man, they get to go in and get electives now, so we try to push it. Our admin, counselors, myself, we run audits frequently to make sure we're checking on those kids. RFEP, that's the formal classification when an English learner is met the proficiency and reclasses. Now they're called RFEP, so that's that 4 years. So right now, as of, I believe it was yesterday, we have 1,271 that are in our systems up to 4 years that we are monitoring. 243 in elementary, middle school, we got 413, high school, 615. So you were talking earlier about where we are, if we're in the red or if we're in the orange, yellow. And again, I like to go over this because it makes sense to me at a last meeting that we had that I wasn't quite understanding how we're in orange or in the states in yellow. Now, remembering on the side there, it is where you started from. So it's the status. So if you are in very low, in this section, right here, and it's then what has changed. So if you are staying in the same spot, then you're still red. But if you were what it means is that they're promoting growth. So that's how they're kind of rating you. So that's the other things that I look at is our comparisons. So, and this comes from the Smarter Balance data, that all students, we are in the yellow, and whereas the state is in the red. So we've maintained, and we are a little above the standards, not quite there, but that's all students. So then I go even further, and I go into, and I look at our English learners. So this is where I didn't understand it. I'm going, what's happening here? Why are we in the orange and the state's in yellow? It's because we maintained our negative 2.7, we're below that standard, whereas the state just increased a little bit. So that's why they are in the yellow. We still have work to do, that's all I'm saying. So we're in the yellow or orange, we still need to work together. So, and even looking at where that 1 to 4 that you see on the where our students' proficiency is, it pretty much matches the state. The level 4 well-developed, 3 moderate developed, those things there. So we pretty much match the state there. So then there's the LTELs. That's a formal education classification given to students who have been enrolled in the schools within the U.S. for more than 6 years. Remember, we're trying to get them out of the program in less than 5. So you become an LTEL after 6 years. They have not met that criteria. And currently we have 327 LTELs. And what was interesting to me, I put up there if they were special ed too, because this is kind of one of my goals. I'm talking with you now, Tally. In making sure that they are getting the supports that they need in those classes. Are they getting, is it a language acquisition, or is it some other kind of disability? Making sure that our IEPs are matching what we need to do as well. So we have English language newcomers. These are students that are between the ages of 3 and 21. They're not born in the United States, within the United States. These students have not been attending one or more schools in any one or more states for more than 3 full academic years. So right now we have 235 approximately, because it does change. This data matter stuff is up to date. It's fantastic. We have about 109 in elementary, middle school 36, high school 90. And we hired newcomer counselor because of this need, and they're going to go over exactly what they do in the next presentation. But we do have newcomers, and they need special support, social, emotional, and learning our school system. So getting them on board and getting them acclimated. We watch them for 3 years. So when I'm looking forward, I kind of group these into subcategories. These are the things that, how am I as the equity coordinator going to move forward? So improving the systems and processes, looking at those systems, what's holding back some of these things. Instruction, looking at what we can do to move our students forward. What can we do for our teachers that helps instruction? And then the social emotional wellness. So out of those 3 groups, it seems like the systems ones that I seem to be getting caught up in, and this is just my tick marks that I put up there. Continuing to work with the IT department on Data Matters to get those student profiles and get them in the hands of teachers, get them in the hands of students, so they know where they are in the reclassification process in their grades. The master plan, English language master plan, was really outdated, so I'm working with some other Marin schools at MCOE. We're coming up with a plan that has everything in place, whether interventions and all that'll go district-wide coming soon. Again, working with special education to make sure our ELD is in conjunction with our IEPs. Our elect group that I just met, the teachers from a representative from each group, each school, established tiered interventions, and we're working on that. And then EL contacts at each school. That would be just amazing, right, Jen? Yeah, okay. So, so if that could ever happen, that would be fabulous. So those are the kind of systems that I'm working on. Instruction, again, implementing a common EL instructional plan at the high schools so that all three high schools are working and doing the same thing. District-wide common assessment to reclassify. MAPS testing is something that is kind of, it's not matching up to, say, CASP. So, are we just testing to testing? At least finding that common assessment that we need to reclassify, whether it's different at the high school or middle school or individual, it doesn't matter. We're going to come up with something that works for everyone. And then adjusting Clark Consulting and Training to meet the needs of the students and staff. And then the social emotional, we added again a second elementary newcomer counselor to meet those needs of those newcomers. And then working with our DLAC assessment, I'm working with Leslie Benjamin, and we're coming up with a video series that addresses family needs. And my newcomer counselors have been brave enough that they're going to go on camera and go on YouTube. So those are the things that I'm working on. And were there any questions?
Okay. All right, I open it up to the board. Any questions? Tom Cooper has a question.
Thank you very much. This is really good.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
thorough, and
Oh, good.
I appreciate that. There's a lot here that.
There's a lot.
Personally, this is great information.
It's in my head. I got to get it out there.
Yeah, you're enthusiastic about it. I
Yeah.
can tell. Can you be reclassified in any grade? So 5 years, right? So can you be if you come into the system in first grade?
Yes.
Sixth grade.
So in first grade, let's say first grade, you're going to take that test in February, March.
And you might be
you might be a 4 because you've gained, that experience. A lot of kindergartners will reclassify out because they're little guys. Would any kindergartner pass those tests? I'm not sure.
Hard, right.
So a lot of them do, yes. So at any grade and any time, we want them, we would like them, it's best for them to be out within 5 years is the goal.
I imagine.
Yeah,
Now,
thank you.
I went to the California dashboard and I don't see any data. So why is that? I'm sure we've been told already, but
Why is the data for our ELs?
it's grayed out on the website
It is.
for English learners. English learner progress.
Oh, if there is another, I don't know, but it's hard to go and see, but
And I don't mean to get
there is ways of clicking in and getting it deeper and deeper. That's how I got that information. So you have to play with it. And I apologize. I can't say right off the top of my head. But if you go down, scroll down a little bit, then there's an EL section. Start clicking on
there.
things,
Okay.
and
Thank
you get more of that
Didn't mean
information.
to sidetrack you, but
Good.
appreciate it.
And so is that a way for the community to also, if they want to do the same thing, the
Absolutely.
community can go in? And so who can they contact if they're having issues as well, trying to look into that information?
So if issues to get into the California,
can they
the dashboard?
district?
Sure, they could call the district office, absolutely. I'm Leslie Smith, and I don't know my number, but call Leslie Smith.
Shoot an email.
Yeah,
Okay,
that would
wonderful.
be good. lsmith@nusd.com.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to have Trustee Gasson and then Trustee Millerick.
Hi, thank you for all the information. It was
Sure.
all really helpful and informative. And I probably spaced when you actually said this, but I was trying to catch up and understanding all of it. You said February through March, they can be tested for reclassification. If somebody wanted, is there ability to have it at a different time? Like, is it just one time a year that
It is. The summative is one time a year, and it comes from the state, and they kind of tell you when the window is.
Okay,
Yes.
so there's no choice. Like if a parent said, no, I feel like my kid is competent or whatever,
We still have to give them services by law. So we still give them, even until they reclassify out, we do still give them services. and support of some kind, yes.
All right. Thank you. Trustee Millerick?
So we have all these metrics and systems that work, but it's just underneath all of that, or even before all of that, in order to be successful in the business community, it doesn't matter if your home language is Chinese or Mandarin or Mongolian or Spanish or Lithuanian, you have to have mastery of the English language to participate in modern commerce. And that's true if you live in China or the Philippines or San Francisco. You have to have these tools. So if I was going to walk onto one of our high school campuses and I said, okay, where is the population that are facing this challenge of language and literacy, and how would I, as an observer, know that we are not only teaching people to be effective in a language so that they can do, simple commerce, like go to the grocery store or get gasoline and do kind of manage a fairly menial tasks in life day to day, compared to the English as a language for academic advancement. So how do you measure the academic advancement capabilities of our students, and how would I go see it if I wanted to walk on a campus and see it? How would I know what's happening? Besides all the numbers, what would I look for?
For one thing, I want to explain, and you might have to help me with this. Oh, I love that you're come over here. Okay, good. In one of several of those methods that the Clark Consultant methods are this or that, or so if you are, it's even the stuff that's day to day. I need to ask for a certain book from the librarian. What would I say? And you're going to be working on those things and developing more things. So again,
if I walked onto a campus and I stepped
and
up
you
to
went
a
into
student, how would I know that student's making that kind of progress? I don't care about the underlying programs.
Right.
I want as an outside observer, a board member,
Right.
I want to walk in and see tangible evidence that something is happening that's advanced English. What do I look for?
What am I looking for? Oh, good.
What I look for when I'm in classrooms
Perfect.
that are not a CCT classroom
Yep.
are strategies that I know are universal to what they're learning in their EL class and being used outside the classroom. So for example, one of the symbols I see a lot in those classrooms is this, and it means you need to use a full sentence.
Okay.
And so when I see that, I know that that's a classroom where the students are being engaged and are expected to perform at the same level as the students who aren't learning a language. The other is when I look around a room and I see who's raising their hand and whether or not students are engaging and willing to take that risk, because for a student who isn't speaking English in a non-EL classroom, it is an extremely risky feat to raise your hand and answer a question, especially when you know that you're going to be asked to do it to the same level, right? And so when I see that, I know that it's a safe environment and someone has engaged in making sure the students are supported. So that's a couple of quick examples. And then if I could, back to the grade out EL, it's because of the new testing, we don't have growth data yet. So because we went from, CELT to LPAC, there's no growth. So when you do scroll down, as Leslie said, you'll find EL, but it's only this year's, and we'll have a dashboard growth measure next year.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then we have a trustee Mac.
Just a really quick question. So I kind of riding on what Tom was asking about the test in different age groups. Basic assumption, I'm assuming the test, of course, changes at the grade levels.
Absolutely.
So
The
complexity, length.
It is and even the initial LPAC to the summative, the initial is shorter and a little smaller, but it has the same things, and it's going in those same areas of reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and just little tidbits. So just to kind of get them warmed up, do we need to get them in an EL program or not? Then yes, they are grade level. I believe they come in and the tests in kindergarten and I believe in first are one-on-one with the teacher when they're done. And then it goes, each one is a separate grade until you get up into, I believe it's high school. Then it is, they group 9th and 10th together and 11th and 12th together. So it does change, and they're pretty comprehensive. And if they pass that, man, they're doing good. Yeah.
And then kind of related to that, if there's, for some students, taking a test is just a traumatic situation. Is there any alternative? Probably not, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Not that I know of, no. Okay. And and as I'm telling them, even if it's in Spanish, I have somebody come in with me, that this is just a test, just to see how much English you know. We try to bring down those barriers, that testing, scary stuff. I get it, yeah.
Right. And the last question, and Jimmy touched on this a little bit too. Clark Consulting, we're kind of ratcheting it down to the point where it might be 1920? No?
So the plan with all our consultants are to ratchet those down, right? So the initial idea was, I think we were going to spend $125,000 on their support, and as Leslie mentioned earlier, we were training our own coaches. So those coaches were Amber and Leslie, and they're not in those roles anymore. Amber's not in our district, and Leslie's doing this job. So because how many days of training did they give you? Like 5. It takes a long time to the Clark program is very specific and has a lot to learn, not only as a teacher, but even more as a coach. So because both those two coaches left in late spring, Clark Consulting said, well, instead of training up other coaches, why don't it's probably better just to use our coaches. So they were more expensive. But so this year there was a bump up from, I think, 125 to, let's say, 200, because we're using all their people now. So the idea would next year we would cut that down from, let's say, 250 to maybe 100, 125. Then the next year we cut down to 50, and then they'll be gone. So it's actually probably a couple-year exit program. We have to work with our principals. We need to work with our teachers, talk to Leslie about so we don't know exactly yet, but that's the idea, is in 3 years they'll be gone. So whether it's 100 or 75 or whatever, we'll just have to work and kind of see what level. We don't want to leave our teachers hanging.
So maybe
this has been the hardest
it's somebody at each school that is kind of the expert that they can those teachers can go to, and then just get training, a little bit from Clark Consultant. So that's kind of the idea that we're heading towards.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. That's right. Go ahead, Derek.
Wow. So appreciate your report, and I have to say that this is has to be very challenging for everyone involved. And we have a saying, it's almost like with the designated and the integrated part, it's like trying to change the tires on a car while it's going down the road.
You are right.
A very difficult task indeed. So I was just trying to sync up your presentation with the board report that you put out. So I had a couple of questions, and I was wondering on page 12, you have a slide, what's working, what's not working, and glad to hear. There's one thing on here that's on both sides, and that's the coaching from CCT. And I'm aware
I did put it on both sides because there's many teachers, and I was one of them. I liked it. I liked that one-on-one coaching in the moment, and what they do, and I won't put it how you put it, they'll give me a signal, and that'll say, would you please talk to your neighbor for a minute and practice that with your neighbor? And then the coach will come up and whisper something. Don't forget, you forgot the language, whatever. They'll tell you, give you a hint. They go back and sit down. And that can be distracting when you're not used to it. So those are the kind of things that a coach might do. But that throws a lot of teachers off.
Is it more specific to any particular grade level than or is it K?
No, it's across the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you be a little more specific about the leadership buy-in? Who are we talking about?
Just making sure that the new leadership that are in, I would say, probably in our secondary, our high schools, of understanding what Clark Consulting looks like, and teaching those steps and method, seeing that in action, because a lot of them are new and have never been trained in that, so they don't they don't know what it should look like, or what is a comprehensive, what they can do for us. So we're in the process of helping them. Let's get all together, whether it's using Clark Consultant with some other supplementary teaching programs, whatever they need, let's just get it in together so that we're kind of, it's hard. Our high schools are a little different. They're high schools, you're right. And
That's
teachers and both, you know, yeah.
So, all right, so yeah, and then the no EIDL, the inconsistency, the lack of sustainability, that's on us. We're trying to do the best that we can, but
I agree.
obviously we have deficit spending, budget issues. We're trying to do the best we can for everyone.
Absolutely.
So that's regrettable. It's too bad. Hopefully, we'll be able to come up with some level of sustainability
Right.
going forward. On your slide 23.
Mm-hmm.
What? The electronic student profile through Data Matters, that sounded like a really good thing. And if you had a number one, or this, I know you have a lot, like I talked about changing the tire while the car's running, but if I feel like this kind of specific information, if it was readily available, can be pulled up easily by any instructor anywhere at any time, I think that would be very helpful. So I appreciate that
being
on your list.
And making sure, so the things that all students need to see, not, I want to make sure I'm working with Alex constantly. We need to move him up to our area so we can continue that, the things that we want to see on there as well, so it's just an ongoing process that we're trying to work at.
I think that's a great idea. The EL contact at each school, is that, that is like expert that each campus would have?
It could be, yes, it could be.
That person,
like
the go-to
in the
person you were talking
secondary,
about?
yes, in the secondary we do have those are going to be the APs who are in charge of. There's a lot of things, all those monitoring forms, the reclassification forms, making sure that the schedule for CCT is going well at their schools. So it's mostly in the elementaries that they don't have that. It's just kind of the secretary does this or that, or the principal is in on it sometimes. So it would be just nice if there was one key person that we could talk with. And I would hope that it would be somebody who is strong in CCT. I'm not sure if it's too much for a teacher to do. That would be asking a lot.
All right, I appreciate that. I think I understand that better.
Good.
The last one, I had a question. It seems like in the board report, maybe you mentioned it, maybe it's in the presentation, but you talk about, I'm not pronouncing this right, the future project that apparently was piloted by San Francisco. It has to do with reunification.
It's Marta. It's your Fuerta. Yes.
So I didn't see that in the presentation. It was in the board report. So I thought get some follow-up on that.
It is going to be a follow-up with that in the next presentation. They're going to talk about that too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good questions. You guys are doing a great job, and it's been a long time since I was technically not. It wasn't called an ELs, but I was a student myself that learned a new language, and we've all come a long ways. And then my nephews come from Finland, and they had to go through the whole process, and it was an ordeal. And anyway, you guys did a fantastic job with them as well. And so I just wanted to give you a little compliment on that. I wanted to thank you also for numbering your pages and and also your slides. So that was very wonderful. It's very helpful. Any other questions from the board? Okay. All right. We move to the next staff report, and that would be equity audit with our superintendent, Jim Hogaboom.
Thank you, Trustee Aguila. So I'm really excited tonight to talk to you about our upcoming equity audit. So I'm going to give a little background, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, who knows a lot more about the audit and how it works than I do. So we are privileged to have her come and talk to you tonight. And Cabinet's like, wow, I didn't know you could get other people to come in and do your reports for you. I'm like, hey, if they know more about it, there you go. So I'm looking forward to that. So just a little bit about how this got started. I mean, obviously, equity is one of our main goals, has been in the district since I've been here. We're doing a lot of things around equity. We're doing a lot of awareness, a lot of training. We work with National Equity Project at the secondary level, and with Epic Education with Nancy Dome at the elementary, done a lot of trainings. We've actually setting some people through Courageous Conversations trainings, which a lot of the other districts in Marin County are doing. So one of the exciting things about the equity audit is it should pull together a lot of information to inform what we're doing and what progress we're making. Obviously, we're very proud of our equity imperative, which I think lays the philosophical kind of foundation for where we're going. But we need to see more results. And I think we're all aware of that fact. We're not closing the gap. We're not moving the needle this year. Amy and her team are doing an incredible amount around that, but we really feel this equity audit is coming at the perfect time. So fortuitously, Ann Matheson, who's one of our partners with Marin Promise, had some talks with Ed Trust West. I'm not sure how those started exactly, but all I know is we're the beneficiary of that. So Marin Promise kind of got an agreement with Ed Trust West about it and heard about it and asked the districts in Marin County if we'd be interested in participating. So I believe that Novato and Santa Fe are the two high school districts that are going ahead with that. So Marin Promise is actually subsidizing it. We paid $10,000 for the audit, but I know it cost probably 10 times that, so we got it for a good deal. So I really want to thank Marin Promise for kind of brokering that. So I think I first met Rachel back in September, October, and they kind of presented what the equity audit was all about. We're also really lucky because Mark Brewer went through the audit when he was with Pajaro Valley Unified the last couple of years, so he already knows exactly what this is about. So that's going to be a big advantage for us at Novato High School. So with that, I'm going to ask Rachel to come on up, and again, she's been through the audits and can tell you a little bit more. It's a 2-year process. This year we do the audit, we get all the information, and then in the spring we'll come back and tell you what we found, and then we get to do the planning, which is probably the more important and implementation phase. So Rachel, nice to see you, and thanks for coming.
Of course, thank you for inviting me. Okay. All right. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me and for this opportunity to share a little bit more with you about the educational equity audit. If I just go forward, or are you moving on? Working on. Okay, sorry. So again, my name is Rachel Ruffalo. I'm a senior practice associate at the Education Trust West. And we're really excited to be doing this work, not only with Novato Unified, but it's such a great opportunity to be working countywide. As Superintendent Hogaboom said, it's Novato Unified and San Rafael that we're starting the work with right now, but we are still hoping that the other districts will join the project to some extent at some point, so that this will really be a community or a county-wide effort. So just to tell you a little bit about the Education Trust West, we're a nonprofit educational equity organization focused on closing opportunity and achievement gaps through research, data, policy analysis, and advocacy. So we are based in Oakland, but we serve all throughout California. We have a national office in Washington, D.C. that's our president at the national level is John B. King, who's the former Secretary of Education under President Obama. Our focus on equity really is focusing on recognizing the historical and systemic disparities in opportunities and outcomes. So we don't just look at outcome data, although that's super important, as you know, to understand the extent of the problem and to create urgency, but we really want to look at the systemic systems and barriers that are in place that have allowed those inequities to happen in the first place and to persist over time. We also believe that it's very important to recognize that resource allocation is an important part of the solution to dismantling disparities and ultimately dismantling the barriers. So how Ed Trust West achieves its mission, as an organization, we do more than just the educational equity audits. We have a team that works on data and research, and we put out many reports and equity alerts where we translate complex education data and research. We support practitioners in enacting systemic change to advance equity, and we seek to influence policy in California by engaging key education stakeholders. So we do have some government relation folks that are actually housed or work out of an office in Sacramento that interact on a more daily basis with our state legislature and school board or State Board of Education. So it's really that second bullet that this education audit work lives. It's this supporting practitioners, like these great practitioners here in Novato Unified, to enact that systemic change to advance equity. Now, this is way too small to read it on the screen, but hopefully you have a slide in front of you, and I'm going to be going into more detail, but just to give a big picture of how this process works, we actually added a third phase, but there's two main phases that EdTrust West will be working directly with the school district on, and that first phase, which is taking place now and through the end of the school year, is the educational equity audit itself, and I'll go into more detail of what that will include. The second column is the Blueprint for Equity Action Planning, and that's the second phase, which will take place next school year, so starting right in the fall. And then the third phase is really an ongoing phase of district implementation. So once a plan is developed and put in place, the implementation can go on for quite some time. The plan is probably going to identify steps for the next 3 to 5 years, but we hope that it becomes a living commitment that is renewed and monitored over time. So one of the main sources of data that we will gather, and we are already in the process of gathering that data from the district, will result in a transcript analysis and a series of reports related to that analysis. This is based on the class of 2018 transcript data, and we are looking at where the opportunities for taking A through G courses and other advanced courses, how those were distributed among the student body in both enrollment, so we look at what the access was to those courses, as well as success. So did students successfully complete those classes? And we will break it down in the report in lots of different ways, demographically, by school, as well as by subject area, to really try to begin to uncover what are the barriers and the opportunities that exist on a more detailed level. So not just saying, 50% of the students didn't meet A through G. Well, that's not as helpful for, taking action. So there's a whole list of reports here. Just to give you a couple of screenshots of examples. This is one report that is an early indicator report, and what it shows is that in the 9th grade year, this is an example, so this is not Novato Unified School District data, but this report is from another school district that showed that the grades that students earned in 9th grade in the core subjects, what percentage actually ended up completing the full A through G sequence. And so in this particular example, for I think that is English, 20% of students who received a C their 9th grade year, only 20% of those students went on to complete the full A through G. So it's a little bit of it's not predictive, but establishing what the trajectory was for this class of students. This is one type of report that the transcript analysis will generate. School by Design, we're actually contracting with School by Design to do this portion of the audit, and they're providing this service for free to the district, so it's a great opportunity for them and for you all to get these reports that are, I think, really interesting and will really uncover and help to visualize the data in different ways than just traditional data charts. This is another one. This is, again, students that received a D in lab science in 9th grade. In this particular sample, only 8% of those students had completed A through G eligibility by the end of their high school. But for students who received an A, 72% were. And so this may, point this particular school district to really focus on 9th grade student success and how to get students off, started off on the right track. So in addition to the transcript analysis, we will gather a lot of information from stakeholders to understand experiences and perceptions. So we will have focus groups at every high school with students and parents, teachers, counselors, and the administrative team. We will also be asking the district to do a survey, not now, because we know there's another survey going on, but later in the spring. We will be doing some interviews this Friday with district staff and district leaders. And we will also conduct a community meeting to get input and solicit ideas from community members. We will share out the findings from the transcript analysis at a data team meeting with the district. It'll be an opportunity to kind of preview what was found and to ensure that there's that if there were any glaring errors in the data transmission, that those get cleaned up before anything goes public. We will also be coming back to report to the board on our key findings and recommendations based on all of the data. And this report will include an analysis of all these different types of data that we're gathering. Excuse me. All right, so that's the end of phase one. I'm going to pause right there because phase two begins to speak about the blueprint for action planning. But I'll pause and see if there's questions.
Trustee Miller first, and then.
So my first question, probably the first only one for now, is if you have based on your slide that analyzed by grade level, and if you know somebody's doing poorly at 9th grade, you can predict they're going to do poorly at 12th grade, is not new information. That's not very useful. So my hope is you're going to show us something that allows us to have a kind of a dive or understanding of the data that's more informative, that an initial failure predicts a subsequent failure. I'm looking for tools or techniques that we can intervene, that maybe somebody's in the wrong discipline, they haven't been motivated at home, they're not getting fed at home. There's all kinds of other issues that have to do with students failing at high school. Some students fail at high school and do well in life because high school was a poor fit for them personally. So
Right.
Your example offered so far to me seems like sort of obvious, and
Yes.
I'm looking forward to hearing the second half of your presentation. Hopefully it's you can show us something
Okay,
that's got
yes.
a little more depth.
Thank you. So that's why we do the a variety of data collection. Obviously, just looking at the grades isn't going to be enough. We would also need to talk with people, the students who've gone through the school district and the teachers to learn more. And that particular slide, maybe that wasn't the greatest example in your opinion, but it could help to identify if there are certain subject areas that are more predictive of this type of trajectory. And so in that particular example, maybe that seemed not helpful. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mack and then Trustee Cooper.
Just really quick question, the community meetings, what kind of time frame are we looking at for those?
Yeah, so we are still working on identifying a date, but that we are targeting for sometime in March.
Okay. And I'm sure we'll know about it, right? Because definitely want to participate.
Yes, we would greatly.
I won't talk, but I just want to
yes, we think it's a great idea for board members to come and to participate and to listen as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My question is, so does the phase 1, 2, and 3 follow the school years? Or hopefully not, because what I'm getting is, hopefully we'll get get to the district implementation well before the third year, hopefully.
Yeah.
Sooner the better.
Right. So generally, it might follow that year, although what we have found is that sometimes districts are able to identify areas to implement even before a full plan is developed.
Okay, and we got Trustee now.
You mentioned an organization or a system or something, School by Design, and I just wanted to know if you could tell us more about their role in this, who they are and what the role specifically, what they do.
Yeah, so they are, it's a national organization that assists schools in various types of organizational planning that is usually has a strong data focus. So they will, districts will consult with them around, for example, developing master schedules. They do some work around budget assistance based on data. And this transcript analysis is one of the tools that they offer. And in this particular partnership, this is the one that they're offering for the education audit.
Sounds good. I guess I'll Google them and try to get more information. And I just wanted to thank you. In all my years here, this is the first time I've seen a public education entity use the term deck of data slides. Very common in the private sector. Maybe that's a result of school by design, but I just felt that maybe we're finally getting somewhere here. So thank you.
Okay, great. And I have a question. The community meetings, when you're reaching out to them, and the surveys for the students in the community, could you make sure that those are in Spanish as well?
Yes, absolutely. The surveys are available in English and in Spanish, and we will ensure that there's translation available at community meetings.
Great, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yes, phase 2. I will try to go quickly. I know it's late. Okay, so in phase 2, this is the blueprint for action planning, and this is where we take the report and the data and the findings and the recommendations, and we co-facilitate a planning process with the district. So the district will convene a working committee and a steering committee. And the working committee are the folks that are really going to pull up their sleeves, dig into the report, dig into the data, do some analysis of root causes behind what they see in the data, like you're suggesting, and also do additional research during that phase. So Trust West will help provide some of that research, but this is a good opportunity for members of the working committee to even visit other schools or to hear about the promising practices that are at work in the state. The steering committee will serve as an advisory board, and the steering committee will ideally have people from the district as well as people from community organizations, the college sector, the business sector, other folks who can lend a critical eye, ask those probing questions, and to make the plan as feasible and as strong as possible. So the process is data-driven. We really do help to guide folks to not just dwell at the surface, but really reflect on those underlying issues. And through the process of having multiple stakeholders involved, both in the working committee and the steering committee, we believe this really helps to build broad ownership, that it's not just an initiative of one leader or a small segment of the community, that it becomes a community plan. So we've done this type of equity audit work at Trust West has with about 15 districts in California over the last 10 years. And this is just one sample of an overview of a plan that a district that we recently worked with developed. And just to kind of give you some of the examples of what they included in their plan, they decided to implement an early monitoring system for college eligibility so that they and families and parents and everyone would know early on how students were doing in progressing towards college eligibility. They also decided to restructure how students could recover their credits with modules focused on mastery. So instead of students having to repeat an entire course that they hadn't passed, that they restructured it so that they could get credits based on mastery of the specific standards that they needed to demonstrate mastery of. And then another example, in this particular district, they decided to implement a middle and high school dual immersion pathway. They have a very large percentage of bilingual students, but the bilingual education was only at the elementary level, and they decided they really wanted to build on that biliteracy. So that's some examples. And then just some overall data. While we can't guarantee any kind of results here, overall, the districts that Trust West has worked with has seen a greater increase in the percentage of students who are who are A through G eligible at graduation than the state as a whole. So on the left, it's all students. So the orange bar, there is an 18% percentage point increase of A through G eligibility for the districts that worked with Ed Trust West compared to 8% for all districts. And on the right, when we focused on Latino students and African American students, there was a 20% increase in A through G eligibility for the districts that Ed Trust West work with compared to 10% of California districts. And that time frame that we were using is from 2010 to 2016. Hopefully even higher. All right, so just again, like the proposed timeline here, we have begun the work already with Novato, and the data files have been uploaded for School by Design. They are looking at the data files right now to make sure that they can run the transcript analysis. That was a great first step. And like I said, we've had some meetings with leaders in the district and leaders at the school sites, and we will be having more extensive interviews this week. And we have some site visits coming up at all 3 high schools, and that will be happening in the winter, early winter, I would say. And by the spring, we will have that preliminary data meeting to share the data. Once that is confirmed with the district, we will aim to have a report of the data, key findings and recommendations by May, and we plan to come and present it to you in June. So if everything stays on track, we'll be back to present the report to you in June. And for year 2, this is the blueprint planning. So the fall, the committees convene. Through the winter, they work on developing the plan, and then kind of a similar timeline. By early spring, they would have a plan ready to present to the board. All right, any other questions? Yes, Trustee Millerick. And then Trustee Mack.
Your point about teaching to mastery, finding a case where a student has not picked up a topic and proposing a program to step in and mitigate that failure, both in terms of personal self-worth and achievement, is the kind of trim tab programs that I'm looking for. Not just a bunch of data, but actionable pieces that we can apply to our town for our students and their success. So I'm glad to see the second half of the presentation, and I look forward to more of the same.
Great, thank you.
Trustee Mack?
And this is a question more for Jim, for district leadership, really, in terms of, there's a few spots in here where trustees get involved, and I just want to, I don't know when we talk about that, but I'll certainly raise my hand, but I'd love to be involved, but let's, whenever the appropriate time is to talk about that.
Any other questions? Okay, so now we can move forward, and I wanted to thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Ruffalo and Superintendent Hogaboom for the presentation. All right.
Jim, could we get this sent to us in the Friday update in electronic format, as well as the last presentation?
Great idea, thank you. Okay, our next presentation is with the special education update, and Kelly Johnson will be our presenter.
Pardon me, Madam President. It's 9:30. Our normal break off is at 11. We have a lot to cover. Or it's 8:30. Okay, it's better. Okay, pardon me. I read the clock wrong. I was going. We got a half an hour left.
I feel like it's that time right now.
Yeah. So I want to make sure we work as quickly as possible because we have a lot of stuff to cover still.
Thank you. And I'll hopefully when we get to 10, I'll ask the board again if we move forward. Okay.
No. Criticism of the speaker.
No problem.
Trustee Gasson, did you have a question?
I do, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but I did notes on my original the one that we got. So is there a summary of just what was changed in the one that we just got?
It's a very simple,
It's just a little thing?
Little
Okay.
thing,
Okay, so if
yeah.
I look at the original one,
You're not gonna have any problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's actually just the goals at the end, and it's only one. There was a duplicate. Yeah. You noticed that too? Okay, great. All right, well, good evening. So tonight's presentation is to give you a foundation of our special education department, since we're moving into an audit and efficiency study by the school services team. So that is going to be coming, I think, in a month or so. Yeah, and so this is just kind of a broad overview at this time, and then I wanted to provide some highlights of what we've been able to experience so far this year. So let me start moving myself along here. So this is an organizational chart of our department, and it just gives an overview of all of the positions in special education, from our leadership team and through all of the service providers. So if we're looking at changes moving forward, it's just good to have an idea of how this is currently structured. And then the next slide is a breakdown of our FTEs of our special education team. And so currently we have about 104 staff members providing special education services in the district. And then we have students are eligible under one of the 13 disability categories. So what I've done is broken it down in Novato based on how many students are eligible for special education under each of these disability categories. And there are 13. And one of our goals, and it's sometimes the most challenging goal, is reaching that least restrictive environment mandate. And it really takes collaboration as a team and having an open mind, and then all of the experts really bringing their perspective to the table to get to LRE, because there can often be different perspectives on what exactly that means for a family, for a school team, and then just working together to be able to reach that consensus. So in Novato, we have a continuum of placement options that move from least restrictive to most restrictive. So least restrictive would be the instruction that students receive in the general education setting, and then they may receive resource support, speech and language, or OT, and they'll receive those services as a push-in model and sometimes to be pulled out. Then it moves into a special day class, which we have 3 different types of special day classes in the district currently. And then special schools, that can be, and here we're moving into MCOE placements, Marin County Office of Ed, because it's more of the moderate to severe disability, non-public schools, home instruction, and then residential treatment facilities. And I'll give you a breakdown of what we have currently there. So starting at the beginning, our Ready, Set, Grow staff, they're required to assess students by their 3rd birthday. So once they turn 3, they have to have been assessed and they need to be placed in a classroom. So their numbers grow over time, obviously, because students are continually being assessed. So currently this year, that team has completed 140 assessments. So it's a pretty hefty job that they have over there, and they're doing an amazing job. So in terms of school age, as we move up, all of our school sites have resource programs. Then the classes listed are the special day classes on the right from resource. And then next to that are all of the services provided at all of the school sites. So the first type of special day class that we have is basically it's a non-categorical. Students from any of the 13 disability categories can be placed into these classrooms. And there's a breakdown by grade as well as the number of students currently in each class. You can see our numbers in a couple of one of the middle school and one of the high schools are pretty high. But what I would say is that students aren't in the classroom for the entire day. So, for example, that San Marin class would not have 20 students in the class. They're going to be mainstream for some of their classes and move in and out. Yeah. Okay. So the other type of class we have is a counseling enriched class. So students who require more of a therapeutic program. And we have a school psychologist who is strongly attached to that classroom. So we have one at San Jose, one at Novato High, and one at San Marin. And what we're trying to do as a district is be a lot more mindful of the intention of the classes and what types of students we're going to be placed. So we have students who are more of an externalizing student. We wouldn't want them in these classes with students who are more of an internalizing student. So they are very, very opposite types. And what we were finding is sometimes those were getting blurred. So we're trying to have a more comprehensive intake system where the classroom teacher, the school psychologist are weighing in on the students that come into the program. And so some of these, we do have students that are appropriate from other districts. So we have students from San Rafael, a student from Reed, who come into these classes. And then the last type of special day class are the social cognition, and those are for the students who have similarities to students with autism. We don't want to limit it to just students who have autism because there's students who could have social challenges that would benefit from the curriculum. So last year at this time, the Linwood, that's a pre-K class, had 11 students. And what we're seeing is those students are moving up. So the TK2 has gotten larger. And I expect that to be the trend as we're seeing that it's still the 1 in 59 for students being found to have autism. So even though it looks smaller right now, just keeping in mind that EI is assessing constantly as the students are turning 3, and those numbers will change. Okay, and then we have students who are in MCOE classes, like I said earlier, the more moderate to severe disabilities. And then also out of county. So for some of our DHH students, there's some really great programs like Penny Cook out in Vallejo has a really strong program for those students. And then as we get more restrictive, we have students in non-public schools and residential treatment facilities. So currently we have 2 students who are in the residential treatment facilities. Our non-public school numbers have stayed pretty consistent from last year. So then this year for parent nights, we've had our initial potluck where parents had the opportunity to meet district office special education staff and learn about the different curriculum. Our next night is a parent transition night, and that we've actually expanded it. Parent feedback from last year was that we held that too late, so we're moving it up to be able to support parents and let them know more about the programs offered to their children. We've already gotten feedback on other presenters to invite to that from parents, so it's really great feedback. Then we have a parent night on the 27th. Dr. Christo from Sacramento State is going to be presenting on dyslexia, and I have 2 really active, really helpful parents who have said that there's a huge divide between what our school staff understand about dyslexia and what parents have gathered as their knowledge. So what I've coordinated is that Dr. Christo is going to present to special education staff in the afternoon, and then she's going to present to parents in the evening. We've coordinated with Marin County Office of Education. They've said they've worked with us to open a space there because these parents would like to open a decoding dyslexia chapter, for lack of a better word, which they have in Sonoma, they have in the East Bay, but this is an opportunity for them to open that chapter here in Marin County. So that's pretty close to the last night, but we're feeling a sense of urgency to get that training in place. And then last one, we're really hoping to focus on student wellness as that last parent night. That's going to be held in May. So some of the highlights of the past year, if you move ahead, Jim Hogaboom, Superintendent Hogaboom, shadowed our special day class teacher. This is the TK2 at Olive, and it was awesome for the staff as well as the students. The students are still talking about Mr. H. Apparently, you have a picture on the wall, and they are very proud of that. So. I wanted to give you an idea of the classroom grants that were awarded to Novato teachers from Dedication to Special Education, which is an amazing parent group. There were 14 classroom grants that were awarded, and you can see all the different types of packages and iPads. It was pretty amazing what the teacher, and this happens every year. So between this amazing parent group and the Marin County Office of Education, they raise $150,000 a year and then distribute that out to our classrooms throughout the county to support the 4,000 students with special needs. And then we still have also applied for 2 district grants. One is one of our parents said, hey, we're not doing enough for our students, preparing them for high school math. So one of the district grants is a high school math summer program, and we'll find out about that soon. And then there's another one that has to do with apps for speech therapists, and we did that across districts and submitted 1 grant. So we partnered with San Rafael for part of that. And then this is the change. So I have to remember which goal. It was the next one, thank you. So things that are going well, I think that, if you look at the data for special education students achieving A through G, which I think is really impressive, we're seeing a trend, and I feel like we're on track to meet that 2019 goal. So that's something that's really positive that we're seeing. It's moving up. This is the next one that I duplicated but have corrected for you, and that is the suspension rate for special education students. There again, we're seeing a trend where that's going down, and so it's really a great direction that we're moving in. Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for the board? Okay. Tom Cooper, and then
Thank you very
Diane
much.
Gasson.
What?
Diane.
Okay. Sorry, I apologize. Thank you very much. Really good, great report.
Thanks.
And I'm very happy to see the progress you just noted.
Yeah.
Really on that upward trajectory. So
Right. Yeah,
great.
it's exciting.
I think it's great work. The special day classes, the non-categorical, I don't know what slide that was.
Sure, I can find it here.
What's the capacity at those? Like, for example, Olive or San Ramon or San Jose, what's the capacity like? Or is that it?
I think we're getting close. There's not a hard and fast rule for that.
And they
Whereas
come and go.
where we have ed code for resource programs is capped at 28, and that's really clear. It's not as clear for special day classes, and I think maybe part of that is because we have students that are moving in and out, like I said earlier. Often, ideally, they're not in that class all day long.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Very good.
Thanks.
Trustee.
Thank you
Mac.
for your, thank you. It wasn't right? Okay. I appreciate all this information, and actually I was excited to see the different presentations that you're going to be offering for parents. I know that that's important for them. Are we able to attend as well?
Absolutely. We did have 2 board members attend our first meeting, and I know that means a lot to staff as well as to the parents, so it's fantastic.
Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd really like to attend at least the next 2. So and I apologize, some of this is just because I'm new. This is a new area for me, but I have been doing a lot of research. One of my questions has to do with the breakdown of the disability categories. Are any of those duplicative? Like if is a student in different categories?
Sure. So each student can be eligible for any of those disability categories. And then on our IEPs, there can be a primary disability as well as a secondary disability. Sometimes there's a third, and there's not a space for that on the front page of the IEP. We document that, we assess in that area, and it's covered. We include that information in the IEP notes. We include that information on the services page of the IEP.
And then just, some of these categories I understand, but what is specific learning disability? What does that?
Sure. So that is typically a student who has average cognition, and then, but we see a discrepancy where their academic performance is significantly below their cognitive ability. And then in addition to that, testing would include a processing disorder, so something that's inhibiting the student from bringing those academic scores to be in line with their cognitive ability.
Okay. So that's probably why the number on that was just so large. So that's probably one of the elements that the other, that will align with another category.
Right.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to articulate this well, but are we able to capture all of the kids within Novato that fall into this category, or does this inadvertently omit those that have chosen not to be or to have services through the school district? For example, I know a couple of people that there's just nothing that they want, so they're doing their own thing. So is this just is this identified kids, or is this the kids that are just within the I'm not sure how well to say this, but I'm trying to figure out if there's other kids out there that we're not serving that are in Novato.
And that is a child find issue for us, or mandate, I should say, not an issue. So if we know that a student has a disability and say they're attending a private school, we have an annual reach out to that family to offer annual review IEP, and then every 3 years we offer an assessment to those families. So this doesn't capture that number for the all of Novato for students who are in private schools, but they do come in and they go back out often because parents still prefer their private school. But
do we know how many that is? Like if
private school, I could get that for you.
And then going along with that, you mentioned, I think at some point when you were speaking about some kids that were from it seemed like there were kids in our program from other locations. So how does that, is it because they're MCOE programs?
No, actually it's because those districts have students that they just have not been able to find an appropriate program. And so counseling enriched, not all of the districts have counseling enriched classes. Not all of the districts have classes for students with autism. And so they can send us a referral packet if we have room in that class, and then we can consider and see if it's if the student's appropriate for one of our special day classes.
Okay. Does somebody else have, I want to look at my notes. Does anyone else have questions?
Okay, thank you. Trustee Mack, please.
So I noticed the ages up to age 22, and it kind of prompted my kind of a really basic question. I should know the answer to this, but at what point is our responsibility complete and they're out of the system?
Sure. So if a student achieves their diploma, then they're done with their special education services with the district. But for those students who are on what's called a certificate of completion, they will stay with us until their 22nd birthday.
Okay, so it's 22nd birthday.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, okay. Got it.
So thank you very much. Any other questions? All right. Kelly, we appreciate you and what you've done with the program. And you'll get a translation flyer soon.
Thank you.
And I will be there on the 2nd as well.
Okay.
I wanted to, okay, let's move to the next staff report. And we would go to, let's see, special staff report, counseling reports and updates. And Jen Larson will be our Director of Student Success.
All right, good evening. So this is actually a great follow-up to what you just heard from Kelly Johnson, and we're actually going to have 3 of us participate in this update because we broke our presentation into 3 parts: our academic counseling, our mental health counseling, and our newcomer counseling. And so the very first thing I want us to do is just take a moment to differentiate between what kind of services are being provided for our students, because I think as a community we often have some misunderstandings around who is serving what purpose. So in our counseling service program, we offer several different options. We have our high school counselors. Our high school counselors have a PPS credential, and we consider them our academic counselors. So these are our counselors on the campus every day. They have a caseload, and they're really looking at ensuring that our students have the courses they need, their academic plans are in place, and that we're supporting them on all fronts so that they can achieve their goals. On our high school campuses, we also have a college and career counselor, and that person serves in a different capacity. They are not a PPS counselor, but they are serving the students and ensuring that they understand the financial aid process, how to get into college, how to access college applications, how to do internship resumes and applications, and so more hands-on, one-on-one, specific college and career planning and high school experiences aligned with the students' goals. And our middle schools, we have deans. Our deans are not counselors, nor are they administrators. They serve as a support for the students in their academics, and they also help coordinate services for our students in the middle schools who need counseling services, or often they're the ones who are coordinating with restorative justice, with our bully intervention, so forth and so forth. But they're coordinating those services that are coming in to support our students. In NUSD, we now have 2 newcomer counselors, one of which is here. Marta will be here talking a little bit specifically about what our newcomer counselors provide. Again, these are both counselors with PPS credentials, so they can and are certificated to be able to provide academic counseling the same way as our high school counselors were. In this case, specifically in our district, our 2 newcomer counselors are providing support that is specific to the needs of our students who are coming to our schools new from outside of this country. And then we have outside partners, and this is the organizations BACR and North Marin Community Service counselors who come in, and that's who's providing our mental health services, often coordinated through our high school and middle school deans, counselors, and administrators, but providing the mental health is our community partners. So I have the privilege of talking about our academic counselors tonight. I've been working with the academic counselors for several years, and I think I've shared with you in the past. I feel strongly that our academic counselors are one of those significant trim tabs in our students' high school success. I think that this is a group of people on campus that are highly trusted. They understand the systems that the students are going to be moving into, and they're responsible for the scheduling. So they really hold the students' success and their potential at their fingertips. When I started working with them, there hadn't been a lot of collaboration. There hadn't been a lot of opportunities for our counselors to come together, and they hadn't been involved in a lot of professional development. Unfortunately, the way our system is set up, we have a lot of efforts in professional development and training for our teachers, and we have a lot of support in professional development for our administrators, but counselors don't quite fit into either of those realms. And so we really took it upon ourselves to come up with an organization that targeted specific needs and support for our high school counselors. We've started doing bi-monthly meetings, so we meet every other month. We meet as an entire district-wide counseling team. And we do include the deans in that. We include our newcomer counselors in that. And throughout that, we've identified not only where we have a lot of inconsistency on the campuses, but we've also identified where is the need for professional development so that we can plan some very specific training and collaborative time. So at our schools right now, we have 3 full-time counselors at San Marin, 1 full-time college career counselor. Novato High, we have 3 full-time counselors, 2 part-time counselors, and 1 full-time college career counselor. And at Marin Oaks, we have 1 of each full-time. So this year, we have actually increased our collaboration even more than we have in the past. Now that I have the opportunity to work so closely with Kelly, we felt that it would really be beneficial, especially in light of our students' specific needs around high stress, social emotional, and mental health, that our teams kind of work together to ensure that we're getting a well-rounded PD system for our counselors. So Kelly's going to talk a little bit about the first few, and then we'll talk about the last one.
So as we meet in these bi-monthly meetings with counselors and deans, we have this opportunity to collaborate and share best practices across the different schools. And we've also had the opportunity to really listen to the counselors and find out what it is that they would like professional development in. So one area that came up really strongly was the 504 plans, and just getting clarity on whose role is a 504 plan, what are the legal requirements with a 504 plan. So we had Jan Tomsky come in, and she provided a really amazing professional development for us. The counselors left with more questions, and what it really came down to from Jan's perspective was what's in your board policy. And so what we've done is we've tried to go through Gamut, which is a challenge. So Melissa Dugan did an amazing job, and we actually were able to find the documents that tell us how often we evaluate 504 plans, when they're who is facilitating, how often do we reassess, do we have procedural safeguards that are current. So a lot of really helpful information. We have an SST online training that Kim Duncan from Hamilton is going to be providing, and that's how we keep track of both SSTs and 504s. It's a system similar to what we have with our IEP system, SACE. And then 2 upcoming trainings that we're going to schedule are Child Find, which I touched on earlier, and then confidentiality, and just making sure that we're consistent across all of our school sites in these areas. I think that's me.
So another great opportunity to have this whole group together is being able to bring in some of our community partners and our specialty programs, so that we can make sure that our counselors have a deep understanding, but also a face to go with the name and the program. So again, for example, tomorrow, College of Marin will be there. We have the counseling team from College of Marin coming to present. They're not only going to be talking about their summer programs and what they're currently offering and what they're currently working on in our schools, but also getting feedback as to what more do you need from us. As we all know, College of Marin is a tremendous support for us, and very willing and eager to support our students in our schools. And so this is their next step is reaching out to the counselors and having our 2 teams come together as a counseling collaborative. And the same goes 10,000 Degrees, Compass, but this is another place where we try to bring in those partners to build relationships. On a more technical side, and I've presented several of these, and some have come in the form of a board policy around our data management and protocols. As I said early on, we identified there's some real inconsistent practices, and there are still some that we need to clean up. And so as we move through this team, we've identified what those are, and hopefully we're getting close to the end of them. Last Friday, we had a full day. All counselors, an administrator from each of the high schools, and our IT team came together, and we spent all day cleaning up areas, auditing transcripts. We looked at every single seniors' transcript and identified where they were, where they need to be, and what we need to do in the next 4 months to make sure that they are achieving their goals. So hands, for our counselors and how much they dug into it. And, I think everyone walked away feeling like we accomplished a lot. And more than anything, I think we alleviated a lot of those finger pointing. It's because of this, it's the data's not wrong, this isn't accurate. Let's fix all that so that we can really get to the root causes. I am ecstatic about the equity audit that's coming up. I think that's going to give us a lot of the data that we've been trying to attain in a much more organized way. So transcript audits, A through G success rate should not be a surprise in next October. We should be able to predict that right now. So I think that we're in a good place now to be ready to do that in the future. And then we're going to be implementing a 4-year plan in Aries rather than the 10-year plan that we attempted. Wasn't as productive and helpful in actual school planning. So we are moving to a 4-year plan and in a place where all teachers, all counselors, and all administrators have access to see it. Newcomer counseling.
Good evening. My name is Marta Posada, and I am one of two, I'm proud to say now, 2 newcomer counselors the district has. In spirit with me today is my counterpart, Karina Akuka. Karina came to us last year as an intern, and I should say a free intern, while she was obtaining her PPS. She has a clinical social work background and degree, and so now we're thrilled to have her and for us to get the additional support that we obviously need so badly. As Leslie Smith explained earlier and gave your data, we have about 235 newcomers identified as 3 years or less in the district from foreign countries, although we do allow for the kids that have been born here and have maybe taken back to their native countries and come back and have the language deficiency to participate in our programs too. So in terms of academic, Mr. Hogenboom asked me to talk to what we've done in the past and what we're doing new. And so that's how I'm structuring this presentation. In terms of academic, our overarching domains are academic, career, and social emotional. And so we work on all 3 domains with kids from K through 12. The way that we've divvied up the world is that I'm currently supporting all 3 high schools. This semester I'll begin to support Sinaloa and Hamilton. Hamilton will be K through 8. Sinaloa, obviously the middle schools and all 3 high schools, making a caseload of about 114 kiddos, although that number always fluctuates. And then my counterpart has about 121 kids that she's supporting, all the elementary schools and San Jose Middle. In terms of what we do, academic functioning review, we review grades, we bridge the communication gap between students and parents in terms of understanding the U.S. school systems, and we counsel our students to overcome barriers. Often, obviously, it's not only understanding the content of the material, but understanding the delivery of, for instance, the math, core math, how differently it's taught here than it's taught in other countries. We also audit transcripts, as has been said over and over again, to ensure that international credits are appropriately reflected on our transcripts. What's new is that this year we're partnering more effortlessly, I should say, and more on time with our on-site personnel to ensure that those transcripts are updated timely so that proper course selections can be made timely, and so that students and families are aware of what their child's trajectory is going to be in our schools, and so we can have those honest conversations, sometimes not necessarily good conversations that perhaps if their children have had interrupted schooling, that perhaps they're not going to be able to graduate from our comprehensive high schools, but are instead going to be offered to go to our alternative school or perhaps adult ed or any other myriad of combination where they can still complete their graduation or their high school diploma But they know this ahead of time instead of us chasing it. The other thing that's happening that's new is that we're ensuring, or we're trying to ensure, that every student has 1 year's growth in 1 year's time in academic functioning, meaning that we want to see that progress. And we're encouraging our students highly and parents to ensure that the kids stay up to date with content that is being given to them in the school, and to take advantage of all the support systems like Saturday academies now. The schools are offering tutoring, that sort of thing that they have, available to them. We also are advocating for our students, particularly in high school, who come to us with international records for extended time. But as I believe our assistant superintendents either spoke or will speak to, we had the blessing from the state in giving us some assembly bills that are ensuring that that happens. And so now it's okay. Now we're looking at it more from a mandated perspective, other than besides just doing the right thing for our students. And then in the future, we're going to be looking at aggregate course grade reviews, meaning that we're going to start to assess where our students are having the most success. For instance, we can probably guess that maybe they're struggling in math, but that doesn't necessarily happen, because a lot of times international students have had more success in math, and it's actually the language that they're struggling more. And so we want to start looking at data in the aggregate form, so that we can say, okay, in this particular coursework, we have X number of students. What's our bell curve in grades for our newcomer students? So that's a new situation. In terms of career, we've always done vocational career counseling with our students and giving them information about 2-year, 4-year, JC, and 4-year college paths. What's new now is that we're starting to explore geographic job growth, especially of bilingual students, because there are many markets that are requiring that, and that are where our students are probably not aware that they can actually compete at a higher level if their two languages maintain academic standing. We're also doing JC visits, for instance, to Shown Farms for the JC, so that they can learn about agricultural or small business programs. I don't know if any of you visited, but now they have a brewery at Shown Farms at the JC, and they also have olive oil making paths, so that our students can learn kind of different careers. And then here's where we keep, I think the district keeps us most busy, and that's social and emotional domain. We triage often. My calendar says where I'm going to be, but it's actually where I'm not, because something has come up with a student. We are providing trauma-informed counseling, and that is to address all kinds of social and emotional issues, whether it's multi-families, homelessness, immigration issues, anything like that. Last year, I shared with the board that we had an exodus of male students, and that we couldn't really kind of pinpoint for a little bit about what was happening, and then determined that because of the election and the fear of deportation and so forth, that a lot of our male students were being asked to work by family members instead of going to school. This year, we've seen a phenomena that's even, I think, a little bit more interesting. I don't know if any of you have heard of the terminology ghosting. It's usually used in relationships when people just kind of leave and without any explanation of what happened, they just disappear. And so now we saw this for a little bit last semester, where our students were ghosting and just not informing us of why they were needing to leave schools. And what we found out was that a lot of them live in very challenging housing situations, or they have their family composite is multi-dimensional in terms of documentation. And so often it's, they just need to leave, and when they need to leave fast. In terms of the programs that we're working on, the Fuerte is, I'm pleased to share with the board that we delivered 5 modules to students during the daytime and 5 modules to parents during the evenings concurrently. And so we had approximately 60 students receive the Fuerte program. The Fuerte program is a 5-module program that includes learning about establishing community goals, routines, rituals, and traditions to help them form traction to both their homeland and to the U.S., the stress of immigration, the effect, identification, and management. How do they come across? How do they show up in the school system? And then building attunement with parents. And so we did this concurrently. The students were hearing the program during the daytime, and their parents were hearing it at night. And so it was very successful. Our data outcomes so far showed that there was a lot of social contemplation. It allowed participants to think out loud and to compare and contrast contexts and experiences. Most of our surveys, we did several assessment instruments, including we did a resiliency scale, which is used by all mental health services providers to assess where students and parents identified being in terms of resiliency before the program and after the program. We also did a youth pediatric symptom checklist to see what their coping mechanisms were before and after. And we did pre and post program evaluation of the program. And then just to keep us all honest, we also did team and peer evaluation forms of each other. So those people that help me can evaluate me as to the delivery, and then vice versa in terms of what worked and what didn't work. In the old world, it's, kind of debriefing that. The Jumpstart program is in collaboration with the JC, and this is a program that allows kids to matriculate early, providing they follow certain steps. We're working with COM and SRJC to do this. Last year we had kids that graduated, our EL newcomer kids that graduated with scholarships, and Doyle scholarships from the JC as a result of going through these programs. In terms of the international record and mixed record transcript audit. We're continuing to do this because it's really critically important that our kids are placed in the right courses and that they receive the credit that they have earned internationally. We also implemented speed check-ins, which is kind of like speed dating, but we do it with a team of people, and we look at each kid and bring them all in, check in their academics, their, anything else that's happening in the school. Have they ordered their cap and gown? We partner with 10,000 Degrees on where they stand in terms of college applications, financial aid, and scholarships. And then our community-based partnerships that has been pretty successful this year. We partner with Marin Community Clinic, Novato, North Marin Community Center, and Novato Spirit. We have common students, and especially with Marin Community Clinic, that interface has proven to be extremely valuable because, for instance, at the beginning of the school year where there were vaccinations that were needed that our newcomers didn't have, I heard that information at 6 a.m. I could act on it by the time I got to school because of that partnership with Marin Community Clinic. And then lastly, I didn't put it on the presentation, but we're working very much with the SROs in our schools. And so, any questions?
Okay, questions, board? Yes, Trustee Millerick.
Martha, thank you. I've enjoyed your presentation. The thing that was most significant to me in your discussion, as well as your co-presenters, but particularly in your presentation, is that everything you described, you talked about from the student's point of view and their success, and your unity of view and focus in serving the Novato community. I commend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I also wanted to remind the board, we still have a few more items left. So if we can limit our questions, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, any more questions? Yeah.
So very quickly, we in terms of the counseling and mental health, I don't oversee these counselors, but we definitely partner together, and it's exciting to hear because, like Marta, you know, by the time we're on our wellness committee, we have the threat assessment team, we have Healthy Novato. What I'm starting to see is this overlap and alignment with all of these different organizations so that we're moving forward in a way that is very consistent. And I think that's really important for students. So for our partnership with BACR and North Marin Community Services, what we found is we have more effective communication, increased collaboration so that we're aligning those services, and also our goal is a more efficient referral process where we're really monitoring students that go in for counseling and students who we see have met the goals that we have for them. They move out of counseling and we're able to move more students in. So it's never meant to be a stagnant all-year process. But in terms of some things we've accomplished through these partnerships, one is we've clarified HIPAA, FERPA, what regulations we need to follow, and it's really increased the communication that administrators can have with counselors about their students. We're also aligning our trainings. For example, our QPR, suicide prevention, we're going to be having our partners also participate in that training. It's nice because once you go over a certain number, the cost is all the same, and so it really aligns us. And then ultimately, with this foundation, as we move into a MTSS model, we're all coming with the same perspective. So it's just great to have this partnership and to begin seeing where we're all touching on similar resources within the district.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Trustee Mack.
I'll question on this, then another question on slide 3. Really quick, can you talk through the identification process? What's our protocol for identifying mental health counseling needs?
Yeah, I wish it was very consistent, and it's
sure it's
not. That's not where we're at. But one thing that I think is a huge strength of the referral process is that students can self-refer, and that is something that I'm really thankful that that's an option for students. But a teacher can refer, an administrator can refer, the students go in. There's not really a monitoring system so that we are really consistently across all of our partners and our own counseling, ensuring that we're monitoring and exiting so that more students can move in. So it's definitely a goal.
I guess where I'm going is social media. Is there any kind of, I know there's no automated way to do it, but just any thoughts on that? Probably not.
I have a thought.
We actually, when I went to an insert safety conference this summer, there's actually a organization that monitors student social media, and I'm not sure exactly how they do that. And the cost for us is too prohibitive, but we're trying to get them to work with the county. So I'm trying to set up a meeting with Mary Jane Burke and the districts that were using them, which were basically larger districts. We're finding that probably each week they might get 4 or 5 different kind of alerts when they would get a certain text that might be concerning to follow up on, and so that would get sent, I think, primarily to the principal. But they talked about that was actually helpful to, it's not doing everything that we wanted to do, but it's one way to kind of track, have someone else kind of track the social media, and I don't have all the details about it, but we've set up a meeting with that group and with Mary Jane Burke in the county to see if we can bring there to just be one more way to monitor, and I'm sure there's all kinds of legal issues and things that they worked out, but you want to keep in mind, we can't monitor the whole thing, but they can, and then they talked about that they were able to head off numerous, possibly tragic situations. So we're looking into that.
I just look forward to hearing more about that. I know there's no easy answer. So, and then quick question for Jen on the counselors. If you could just follow up, we don't need the numbers now, but on slide 3, where you lay out the FTEs for the full-time counselors, the part-time counselors, if you could just follow up with a caseload.
I can tell you the average is around 350. Right now it's a little lower at Novato High, a little higher at San Marin, but I can get you exact numbers and put it in a weekly update.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any more? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jen and Kelly and Martha. We really appreciate your help. Okay, next, now we go to our discussion action items. And this is a presentation of the first reading. Graduation requirements, and again, we're a little behind, but we're moving along.
All right, well, this is easy, efficient. We are just having you take a look at our board policy relating to the high school graduation requirements. There are a couple new laws that opened up some options for us in 2018, and we just would like the board to reflect upon them. We'll bring this back for as an action item in the future, probably in March. But we did really want to identify for you a couple options that we've already discussed as an administrative team and really feel like it's the right thing to do for kids. And so we want to really have your thoughts on this as well. But the area of focus there is on page 7. And this is a new education code that allows us as a school district to give honorary diplomas to students. In particularly a student that might be terminally ill, giving us the opportunity to grant that diploma in that instance. And the other one that is just come online as another option is for international exchange students as well, to sort of commemorate. It's not an official high school diploma, but it's commemorating their participation with us. And the last item is under let's see. AB 3022. And this is a new law that came out in 2018, and it authorized us to grant a diploma to persons who departed California in grade 12 against their will. So these are individuals who in their senior year maybe had some sort of issue with immigration. It does open the door for us to grant those diplomas. So don't need to discuss it a lot tonight, just want to put it on your radar so that you can reflect on it, educate yourself, talk to your constituents, and we'll bring that back to the board in March. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Amy. All right. Next on the agenda is item B. Accept 2017. Oh, it is an action item. Okay, let's vote. Okay, so.
What for? Are we going to approve them or move them for second reading? Oh, for first reading, move to a follow-up reading? Yep, I second. Yep.
Okay, great. So we have a motion from Tom Cooper. We have a second. Okay, Ross. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Second reading.
All right, all in favor? Okay, oppose? Okay, 1 absent. 6-0, 1 absent. Okay. All right, item B is accept look at the 2017 to 2018 annual audit report.
All right, I get to see Amy and Chris got all excited about their items, and we're not going to be left out over here in the business department. This is the main event. This is the audit report for 2017-18. We did our auditor handshake earlier, so we won't do that. But I wanted to introduce Christy White from Christy White and Associates. So we've got the top person, which is great. I wanted to thank Christy. Her team was great to work with, and I wanted just to turn it over to her, and she will give you an update on the audit for last year.
Thank you very much, Yancy, and it's such a pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm very impressed with everything you have going on. I really do like listening to all the educational side of things. You know, I'm always working on the business side, so it's great to hear what you've got going. So the audit report, I'm just going to touch on the highlights. As you can see, it's a pretty weighty document, but there's basically 3 audit opinions in here. The audit is very all-inclusive. All of the funds of the district, so general fund, cafeteria fund, capital projects funds, ASB funds, And then all the compliance in the federal categorical areas. And then, the state has their whole list of things that have to be audited annually, from attendance to ACEs to instructional materials and so forth. So in putting this together and putting our opinions on it, we spent a lot of time, obviously, in the district, at various segments during the year. And then ultimately, the financial statements are what you have approved, submitted to the state and the county and the federal government. So overall, excellent results this year. All three of our opinions, and starting on, I guess, page 1 with the financial statements, and then later on in the report, you'll see the federal and state compliance opinions. All of them are the best opinion that you can receive. So we call that an unmodified opinion. So great job doing that, no question. And you will find the financial statements themselves start on page 11. And I'm not going to go all through them. There's obviously a lot of information here. But I do want to point out that this is one of the only places where you see all of the funds of the district added together on a full accrual, like a business-like accounting model. On a day-to-day basis, you work in your fund world. This is our operating fund, and that's where you pay your salaries out of, and textbooks and all that. And it's really important that obviously you do all the accounting at that level, that granular level. But this is an overview. It shows all of the long-term assets, so you've done a lot with your building program and continue to invest in that. It shows your long-term liabilities with your bonds. And then there's one huge liability that is in that number, and that's the state's unfunded pension amount. So as you know, CalPERS and CalSTRS are underfunded, and all the school districts in the state who participate have to show their proportional share of that unfunded liability, and that's like close to $90 million for this district. So what does that mean? And it creates a big negative on the bottom line there. Well, obviously, that number isn't payable now. It's a long-term actuarially determined number, but it has obviously created a lot of conversation in Sacramento about how to address the unfunded situation. I think the governor proposed throwing some money from the budget into helping with that, but it's probably a drop in the bucket. So as a result, you've seen and experienced increasing pension employer contribution rates. So it does have obviously an impact on your budget every year. But I just kind of want to point that out because it's a big number. The other liability, and I think Yancey has a presentation on this following, is the other post-employment benefits, and that's another actuarial determined number. Yours is very low compared to other districts that we audit, and that's because the way you've structured this program has resulted in it not being woefully underfunded as compared to other districts. So good job there. Let's see, I want to point out a few other things. On page 71, there's this trend schedule that has your general fund for the year of audit, which was 2017-18, and then the prior 2 years. And so you will see that you have met the minimum requirement of the state to have a 3% reserve. So good job there. You do have declining enrollment, as I'm sure you know, so that's always a challenge with the budget to try to do the same or more with fewer dollars. And then the final kind of report card is on page 86, and this just recaps those three opinions I was talking about: financial statements, federal awards, state awards. And as you can see, the best opinion is unmodified. And for federal, you qualify as a low-risk auditee. That means you have not had any findings or question costs in this area in this year and the prior two fiscal years. So great job there. We did have one finding this year. It was very minor. It was in the area of CalPADS reporting, which is a very data-intensive report, and you have to gather it from various areas, and then there's updates. So there were a couple of errors, if you will, but it only resulted in a very minor amount that nevertheless we had to report to the state. And I know you've already taken actions to correct it, so good job. And I have to give a shout out to your ASBs. We had no ASB findings this year. Yay! I know, we went to Marin Oaks, we went to San Jose Middle and Novato High, and all of them had clean audits, so good job. Yep. And we had another finding last year on the Stark that was implemented, no problems there, so very clean audit. And my partner, Heather Rubio, who comes out and does this audit, I said, is there anything else that you want me to say about this? And she said, well, tell them that this staff is a joy to work with. They're really nice people. So that makes our job easier too. So thank you. Any questions?
Board, any questions? Yes, Trustee Myrick.
Ms. White, thank you so much for coming out personally. The board looks at this as our tool to oversee our staff's effective financial management of the district, and we look to you and the direct relationship we have. And we know you work closely with our staff, but this board counts on the integrity that you bring to the audit role in your office. And thank you for personally coming before us for this presentation.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much. So I don't have any questions. Next item. Oh, this is an action item again. So let's do, okay.
I'll move approval of.
Okay. Ross Millerick, motions, and Tom Cooper.
It's an acceptance of the annual audit report is the actual action, so.
Okay. And Tom Cooper, seconds. Oh. All right. Okay. I'm for a vote now. Let's do, okay, 6-0, 1 absent. Thank you. That concludes that item. All right, next item. Approval of the schematic design. And we got Mike Ullard over here. Thank you.
Good evening, trustees. I'm excited that I'm not the actual last person to go tonight. My boss has to come back up. So tonight, quickly, as I'm looking at the clock, I'd like to present to you, with the help of Todd Lee from Greystone West, the schematic design for what we're calling the athletic field complex project at Novato High School. Just as a refresher, if you remember back in early October board meeting of 2018, the board approved this project to be added as a phase 1 bond project, and had a budget of about $8.4 million. So we went ahead and been working hard to come up with a schematic design. And real quick, I'll go over the project information, show you the site location, and then turn it over to Todd, who'll get into the fun part, which is the cost estimate and the schedule for construction. So just to refresh your memories, this complex is a couple of different fields getting some synthetic turf. Obviously, it's the new about 85,000 square foot practice field for soccer and lacrosse. It's also, since we're putting a PAC over our 5-court tennis system right now, we lose use of that. And we're going to demolish the older 3-court system that was there originally and construct a new 30,240 square foot tennis complex 5-court system that's got lights. We're also going to abandon our current softball field and move it and build a new 31,000 square foot synthetic turf softball field next to the existing baseball field. And just to not leave out baseball, we're going to reduce that field, bring in the left and right field fence a little bit, and rip out the existing grass and replace it with about 102,000 square feet of synthetic turf. And as a part of this project, we're just going to prepare the area that we've highlighted that you have approved for the donated JROTC marching pavilion, and I'll show you that here in a second. So just to give you a visual view of what I just described, here's sort of the schematic layout. Baseball field is an existing location. As you can see, we bring in the left and right field fence and take off some of the curve on the outfield. Put the softball field next to it. And then next to that, we put the practice field. And you can see where the tennis court's kind of over where that existing 3-court system is now. And what's not shown on this larger shot is there is a path of travel and access to each of these from, I think, both sides of the Gordon Gym, which is right here. So we'll have a main path in here, and then go that way and that way, sorry, to access all those fields to meet ADA compliance. And then just to give you a close-up view to keep with our standard fields that we did with both football fields this past summer when we returfed them. We have the same striping, I'll bet no football. So we have the same across, the same soccer lines that we had before. There's a few extra out-of-bounds lines that we can use on this field that we weren't able to because of the football safety lines on the stadium fields. Of note on this, we're actually putting an 8-foot perimeter fence to protect this new field, and about, I think it's 60 to 80 feet behind each goal, we have a 20-foot safety net to protect, well, actually keep in errant soccer balls and the cross balls from flying into the other fields. So much like we did at Novato and we're doing now at San Marin for the cross. So now I turn over to Todd real quick to go over the fun part, the numbers. Just click the button here.
So interestingly enough, we are almost spot on budget. I won't tell you that the numbers lined up with my initial numbers, but the total works. A couple things that have come up. Soils engineer's recommendation is to cement treat all of the turf fields rather than lime, which we'd originally assumed. And that's the numbers based on that, doing it as a lump sum over a 6-day period. That'll provide a super stable base and make it really, really tough on the rodents to interfere with the field. Turf is based on quotes on the latest materials. There are some new materials for the softball and baseball fields, both in fiber and fill. So we'll have some choices to make between cork or ground olive pits is actually the latest and greatest for the baseball. It's got a little more weight to it and tends to stay in place a little better. But we'll be talking to the athletic directors about that when the time comes to make the decision. The price points are very similar. As you'll see, we've still got 5% of design contingency, which we'll maintain through DSA approval. DSA approval in this case being access only. And we still have a 10% construction contingency, and we'll maintain that all the way through because you're working in the dirt and there's a considerable amount of unforeseens associated with that. So if there's any questions on budget, I'm happy to answer them. If not, we'll move quickly to schedule.
Okay. Board, any questions? Okay.
So schedule, we're targeting, again, our DSA approval is abbreviated because there's no structural review. It's access only. We're assuming we'll come out of DSA sometime in April. We're looking at shutting the fields down around the 15th of May, turning the water off and allowing things to dry out. Mobilization around the end of May, and then demolition for the first week or so in June. And then going straight into the rough grading and cement treating. That's going to be a fairly noisy operation, so I've currently got it scheduled to take place after school is out for the summer. Summer is going to be extremely busy getting things into place. Get back in the fall. The sites are starting to come together. Weather obviously will play a factor, but hopefully we're laying turf in September and October, and then completing fencing and other things as we moved into the winter. We're showing a completion date right at the end of the calendar year. Tennis courts will be finished a little earlier than that in time for the season, but opening the field sometime in late December. It's a lot of area. It's not a particularly complicated project, but there's a lot of quantity in both grading and turf and other activities to take place, so it'll be a hard run for 6 months.
Thanks, Todd. And just one thing to note, kind of things come around. When we first built the initial stadium, we took all the spoils and dumped them on the back, so we have like that mogul area. We actually get to take, I forget, 2,000 cubic yards of that and use it, because we have such a elevation difference on this to level it out, so we're using stuff we left there to age well in the back. We're going to put it back into use, so we get rid of some of the mogul. That's nice. So if there are any questions, glad to entertain.
Okay, board. Yes, Trustee Millerick.
What's the plan to work with the neighbors to make sure any dust or noise that comes out of that earthwork is, at least they're notified about, and how's that working?
Great question. We're going to take the same approach we did last year with the stadium returf. We did mailers to the immediate neighborhood surrounding the school. We're going to do a lot of PR, social media, say, hey, we have a really, really busy construction season at the high schools this summer. There's probably less area that's not going to be touched that is going to be touched at both high schools, with 2 new buildings at each site, these fields at Novato. So a lot going on. So we'll definitely give them notice, use little mailer cards, and try to hold a town meeting if they have any urgent issues or questions, and points of contact they can talk to.
Okay, next, yes. Tom Cooper?
Oh, just
and then Greg. Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Okay.
You can go.
A couple quick questions. ADA access, you mentioned from the gym to the 3 new fields. Does it continue up to the football field? Or
Yes.
it can still be path on the other side of the tennis courts?
It's going to go, main entrance is here, and we're building one all the way down to connect to the baseball here, and then you have ADA access all the way up here to this way.
Okay.
So you can go down through the PAC, which will have one down here, and you can go around. It's kind of
Okay, so it's going to be 2 paths. Got it, okay. 8-foot fence around each of the 3?
No, just this one.
Okay.
And this will be I think it's 3.5, 4 foot, whatever the standard is for. I think it's 4-footer for the outfields for the
okay.
2 fields, and then of course whatever I think the
Right.
dugouts and the
Okay.
bullpens and all that are 6 to 8.
Oh, the dugouts are.
Yeah. Oh, and one more note on the baseball field, because we already redid the backstop there with the ADA access ramp and the bleachers.
That's
We're
all
not going
there.
to have to do that with this
Right.
project. It's already completed.
I know there was talk of raising the right field fence to some height, like 12-foot, 10-foot number, but anyway.
We talked about it. I don't think we.
I think it's currently taller.
Yeah.
I think it's currently 6, but I didn't see.
Right.
I think the AD might have something to check with the AD. Is there any concern about not securing those other 2 fields to keep, poachers from coming and just using them anytime they want?
Well, it's like what you have now with the current baseball field. The gate accesses are locked
Okay.
and maintained by the team and the AD. And talking with the AD a lot on this one, they're definitely going to take a lot more ownership and
Okay.
management. I'm almost guarantee when not used by the high school, it will be in demand by the public.
Got it. And Jim and I were asking this question today. Where's the ROTC pad going? The old softball field. Okay, got it. Right.
I can't talk and point at the same time.
And then last question, the areas between the 3 fields, open, just dirt and weeds, or we're going to concrete?
With the cement treat, that's great. You won't have to worry about much rodents. And I think we're trying to go for mulch, just low maintenance.
Okay, just something basic, okay.
Because the fields will be the baseball field, tear down, softball field, tear down,
Right.
soccer field. So
So you have slopes with,
Correct.
with mulch on them, okay, got it.
Okay.
Oh, the gardener speaking.
Thank you, Trustee Mack.
I'm sorry, last question. RFP, when isn't there an RFP associated
Well,
with this?
as you know, you just approved us to go with the lease-back contract method on this one. So we're currently working on that right now to come back to you for approval of
Okay.
that process again, to go out to bid to get that.
Okay.
Doing that method, we get some advantages, but we can still,
We start to get quotes while we're waiting on the
right. So you won't be going out to bid in May. We'll be able to get the contractor on board early to get his subcontractor prices locked in earlier, so.
Okay, Trustee Cooper.
So I too had a question about the marching pavilion, but I understand it's off it.
And we're still working on.
It's just north of the exhibit there.
Right. We actually have a meeting, I have a meeting tomorrow with with Susan from the
Susan Miller?
Citizen, yes,
Yeah.
Citizens of.
Well, as long as we're
To talk
accommodating
about that,
them,
and then
that's all
eventually we
that-
need to get back with Mr. Gelati and meet and.
Yeah, if we're accommodating them, that's
Right.
great.
But we finally I'm finally able to go back to them and say, here's what's available, once we have all
Well-
this laid out now.
We're doing a lot of juggling around.
Back over here. So,
And then my,
for the softball.
very well. My last question or comment was about item 14 on your schedule.
Oh, the schedule.
And it's regarding the tennis court, and Jeff Fiant, I'm sure if he were here, he would want to ask this. Are you in fact going to pave the tennis courts, or is it going to be made out of concrete?
An asphalt base with a topping over the top.
And is that standard USTA standards?
He handed me the book, I still have it.
Perfect, I'm happy with that. I just
Yeah,
don't want
we're
him to
building
come
this to
back and-
complete CIF standards, that's
He
why
would
there's
beat
5
us up
courts.
if we didn't ask that.
So be able to host MCALs and NCS events at this.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. More questions? All right? Yes, okay. Derek now.
Let Trustee Mack would eventually get to it, but going back to the schematic, there's public access. Are we gonna close that, or has there been any?
The public access.
Yeah, we right about there.
So it's a naturally worn path. We've never paved it or addressed it, but it cuts off part of it, which goes this way. My guess is it will just go this way. We're not planning on closing off that access.
Okay, that's fine.
Most likely.
Okay, great. All right, any more questions? Yes.
Path question, let's check with our security team and make sure that, there's been discussion that we shouldn't have back access to any of our campuses. So separate from what's possible, let's make sure we do a security audit just to make sure we're moving in the right direction.
Definitely factored in with that. Also, I know for the construction season, at least for the next couple of years, I would recommend we keep it open due to the strain on the parking. It gives you different access, and people do park, students do park back here and alleviates some of the congestion on Arthur Street. But definitely something to consider with the security and physical security of the school site.
Walk-on shooters are, if we have an issue, we should have a strategy district-wide, we should positively make the decision, not just let it happen.
Okay, great, thank you. This was a discussion action item, so I ask for the vote. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, Rick Mack, and second, no. Okay, great. All in favor? All right, 6-0, 1 absent. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now it's 10 o'clock, and as promised, I wanted to ask, would everybody be okay? I'm asking, is everybody okay? Okay, great. Okay, next we got Yancy Hawkins, and and thank you, Yancy, for your last report.
Thank you. I'll be the trim tab on this item. Thank you, Trustee Aguila. So the last report of the night is our actuarial study of our other post-employment benefits. And just a reminder on this, we offer employees who serve a certain amount of time in the district funds towards their health and welfare benefits of $200 a month between the ages of 55 and 65 in our employment contracts. Every other year, this is required. This report is required to be updated. In the past, you would have heard it as GASB 45 liability. GASB 74, 75 are just updates on GASB 45. So it's important for me to note that the last liability that we brought in and this liability are not calculated exactly the same, but they are relatively similar. Most of the changes in GASB 74 and 75 did not impact a plan similar to ours. So the liability is about $1.4 million. That's a little over 1.5% of our annual budget. As Christy White noted, in terms of districts, that is very, very low for a liability of this size. This actuarial study is required every 2 years by GASB 7475, and it's included in our audited financial statements as well. So a summary of this report was included in the audited financial statements, and it is the basis of which we set up the liability on our books. With that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions.
Okay, board? Okay, trustee, no?
It's really not a question. It's just the whole process of the expansion or the growth of the GASB reports over the last 10 years is slowly, they've been updated and changing to reveal more and more of public agencies' real liabilities in debt service, where in the past, public agencies were able to sort of set these numbers aside, not necessarily report them as true liabilities. Though this is still a PAYGO system, which kind of, in my opinion, hides that liability because it's like a lease, you know. But I am glad to see that the GASB laws that were put into place about a decade ago, and the agreement was to allow them to become more and more transparent and relevant, is actually taking effect. And I think it's reached even the new governor's eyes in the budget that we do have some severe public liability issues around our state and local employees that, as citizens we're going to have to come to grips with. And this is just another report that verifies the reality of these debts and liabilities. And appreciate you bringing it forward, and I hope everyone reads it. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Millerick.
So on the second trustee Nell's issue, the fact that these liabilities are made declared publicly is important. But in this case, as we heard from our auditor, this is less, in your words, less than 1% of our operating budget. This district recognized these issues 3 decades ago and restricted the amount of money that we encumbered from this district in order to do retirement funding. As she pointed out, we were at the very, very bottom of the problem in this particular area. That's the good work that we did here. The bad work, unfortunately, is our teachers retire and draw against the state funds and the PERS and STIRS. Those programs had grand estimates for how the economy was going to grow and had great revenue projections that didn't come to pass through the Great Recession. That the money's not there to fund all those retirements. And so the way the past governor, and I believe the state in general is going to have to continue, is they're going to have to come out of current earnings from employees who are working for us today are going to get less compensation for their work because we're being asked as a district to put 20% of the money that would go to them back into the state to fund those underfunded pension plans. And those are the funds that will carry those employees through from their age 65 until the end of their life. And there's just not enough money, and we're going to continue to do this. And that is what's caused us great consternation in events like the Los Angeles School District strike. The current employees are bearing the price for us not having planned well enough at the state level to cover the cost. So I agree it's an issue, but to the extent Novato School District could accommodate it, we did. But we are going to face this dilemma in all of our negotiations with our employee groups and the ability to deliver services as we continue to fund pensions for people who have long since retired from this district through contributions to state pools. And it's frustrating, but the state collectively did it to itself, and here we are. So, and thank you for Trustee Nell for bringing up the issue again one more time. It's going to be a problem.
I appreciate the comments, but I just want to also just make sure I'm actually complimenting the GASB system as trying to get people to recognize that the reason we're in the mess we're in is that we allowed public reports to cover and hide up the lack of investment that was required at the time. So there was no, you could literally say what problem 10 years ago, when it's because of the public reporting didn't require these liabilities to be posted as plainly as they are allowed now. And so
I think it's more than that. I think they had grand views of how the stock market was going to grow and they were going to get rich and famous. And it's the same problem as the workers who used to work for United States Steel or work for General Motors. When they declare bankruptcy, what happens is all of a sudden your pension that was going to give you $4,000 a month for the rest of your life turns out to give you $750 a month for the rest of your life, and you did everything you thought right, but the company used those pension funds to cover its funding. Its you borrowed against your pension fund and you didn't have a say about it. That's those, well, it does. It's and those, their general accepted accounting principles need to be sharp enough to catch that stuff. And I agree that it should be. That's good.
Good comments. So that, any more questions? Okay, so that was a discussion action item.
Move approval.
Okay. Who seconds? Okay, Greg, Mac. And wanted to thank, okay, so then let's do a vote. Okay, so 6-0, 1 absent. And I wanted to thank Yancy and for the presentation and staff and all those who came here, Leslie. And that concludes our meeting today. And the next meeting is January 29th, closed session at 6 o'clock, open session at 7.